A dazzling burst of energy illuminates the dimly lit laboratory, materializing into a figure that defies human comprehension. Princess Willa, her crystalline skin pulsing with an otherworldly glow, stumbles forward, her eyes frantically scanning her alien surroundings. Marcus Hill, a human scientist burning the midnight oil, drops his clipboard in shock as the Romulan royalty materializes before him. "I need your help," Willa gasps, her voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. "I've been cursed by my enemies. Only intimate physical contact with a being from another species can break this spell." Marcus blinks, his scientific mind struggling to process the fantastical scene unfolding before him. "I'm sorry, what?" "You must believe me," Willa pleads, her crystalline form shimmering with urgency. "I have only 72 hours before this curse transforms me into a mindless energy construct. Please, I beg you." Skepticism etches itself across Marcus's features. This has to be some kind of prank or hallucination. Aliens, curses, it's not possible. In response, Willa raises her hand. The lab equipment around them begins to levitate, defying gravity with ease. Marcus's jaw drops, his worldview shattering in an instant. "Okay," he breathes, "I believe you. What do we need to do?" Their first attempt at intimate contact ends in disaster. A surge of energy courses through their bodies, shorting out the lab's power and plunging them into darkness. As emergency lights flicker to life, Marcus realizes the gravity of the situation. "We need to try again," Willa insists, her form flickering ominously. "But not here. It's not safe." As if on cue, alarms begin blaring throughout the facility. Marcus's computer screen flashes to life, displaying an urgent government alert. A Romulan warship has entered Earth's orbit, demanding the return of their princess. "They've tracked me here," Willa says, fear evident in her voice. "We must leave immediately." Marcus nods, his mind racing. "I know a secure location outside the city. We can continue our efforts there, away from prying eyes." As they prepare to leave, Willa grabs Marcus's arm. "There's something you should know. This curse is tied to Romulan physiology. Human contact could be dangerous, unpredictable." Marcus meets her gaze, determination setting his jaw. "We don't have a choice. Earth's safety is at stake. We have to try." They slip out of the lab just as Romulan search parties materialize on the streets, their energy weapons casting an eerie glow. Marcus leads Willa through back alleys and shadows, their hearts pounding in sync with the urgency of their mission. As they reach Marcus's vehicle, a Romulan scout spots them. Energy bolts sizzle past their heads as Marcus guns the engine. They tear out of the city, the fate of two worlds resting on their shoulders. In the rearview mirror, Marcus catches a glimpse of Willa's shimmering form. Her eyes meet his, a silent understanding passing between them. With Earth's diplomatic crisis looming and Willa's time running out, they race against the clock, hurtling towards an uncertain future where the boundaries of science, alien physiology, and human determination are about to be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. The city lights faded behind them as Marcus's pickup truck barreled down the darkened highway. Willa's crystalline form pulsed with an eerie glow, casting dancing shadows across the dashboard. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tightly, his squeezing hard with tension. "How much farther?" Willa asked, her voice strained. Marcus glanced at her, concern etched on his face. "About an hour. There's a cabin in the mountains where we'll be safe. How are you holding up?" Willa's form flickered, her outline momentarily blurring. "The curse is progressing faster than I anticipated. We don't have much time." As they drove through the night, Willa's skin began to pulse more rapidly, the intervals between flashes shortening with each passing mile. Marcus noticed the change, his foot pressing harder on the accelerator. "We need to try again soon," he said, his voice tight with urgency. Willa nodded weakly, her form seeming to lose substance with each pulse. Just before dawn, the truck lurched to a stop in front of a rustic cabin nestled among towering pines. Marcus helped Willa out of the vehicle, her body alarmingly light in his arms. They stumbled into the cabin, Marcus fumbling with the keys before managing to unlock the door. Once inside, Marcus rushed to activate the solar-powered generator and basic security systems. The cabin hummed to life, lights flickering on to reveal a cozy, if sparse, interior. Willa collapsed onto the worn couch, her breathing labored. Marcus knelt beside her, his hand hovering uncertainly over her shimmering form. "We need to try again," Willa whispered, her eyes locking on to Marcus's. Heart pounding, Marcus leaned in. Their lips met, and a surge of energy coursed through them both. The cabin's lights flared brightly, then dimmed. When they parted, Willa's form seemed more solid, the pulsing of her skin slowed. "It helped," she said, sitting up straighter, "but it's not enough to break the curse." Marcus nodded, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "What do we do now?" Willa's expression turned serious. "I need to explain more about Romulan physiology in this curse. The intimate contact required. It may be more intense than we initially thought. And Marcus, it could be dangerous for you. The energy discharge—" "I don't care about the danger," Marcus interrupted. "We have to try." As night fell, they prepared for another attempt. The air in the cabin crackled with tension and unspoken fears. Marcus and Willa stood facing each other, their bodies close but not quite touching. "Are you ready?" Willa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus nodded, steeling himself. He reached out, pulling Willa close. As their bodies pressed together, a blinding flash of energy erupted between them. The cabin's lights flickered wildly, and electronic devices sparked and sputtered. Marcus gasped, a searing pain shooting through his body, but he held on, refusing to let go. Willa clung to him, her form pulsing rapidly. When the energy surge subsided, they stumbled apart, both breathing heavily. Marcus leaned against the wall, his skin tingling from the residual energy. "Are you all right?" Willa asked, concern evident in her voice. Marcus nodded, straightening up. "I'm fine. Did it work?" Willa's form shimmered, but the curse remained unbroken. "Not yet, but I think we're making progress. We need to keep trying." As exhaustion overtook them, Marcus and Willa retreated to the bedroom. They lay down together, Willa's glowing form nestled against Marcus's chest. Despite the urgency of their situation, sleep claimed them quickly. Unknown to the pair, their energy discharge had not gone unnoticed. High above the Earth, on the bridge of the Romulan warship, Captain Zorn studied a holographic display of the planet's surface. A pulsing red dot indicated the source of the energy signature they had detected. "We've found her," Zorn announced, his voice cold and determined. "Prepare a strike, team. We move at dawn." He turned to his communications officer. "Contact our superiors. Inform them that Princess Willa appears to be in the company of a human. This complicates matters." As the Romulan ship bustled with activity, Marcus and Willa slept on, unaware of the forces closing in around them. In the darkness of the cabin, Willa's skin emitted a faint, steady glow. The curse continued its relentless progression, a silent countdown to a fate that threatened not just Willa, but the entire planet. With each passing hour, the stakes grew higher. The deadline for Willa's return to the Romulans loomed ever closer, and the curse showed no signs of breaking. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the mountains, the cabin stood as a fragile sanctuary in a world on the brink of interstellar conflict. The first rays of dawn pierced through the cabin windows, casting long shadows across the room. Marcus stirred, his eyes fluttering open as he became aware of Willa's warm, glowing form nestled against him. For a moment, he allowed himself to forget the urgency of their situation, savoring the peaceful silence. That silence was shattered by the distant thrum of helicopter rotors. Marcus bolted upright, his heart racing. "Willa, wake up! They found us!" Willa's eyes snapped open, her crystalline skin pulsing with alarm. "The Romulans!" "I think so," Marcus said, already moving. He grabbed a backpack and began shoving supplies into it. Water bottles, energy bars, a first aid kit. "We need to move now!" Willa stumbled to her feet, her movements unsteady. Marcus noticed her skin flickering more rapidly than before, a visible manifestation of the curse's progression. "Can you run?" he asked, slinging the pack over his shoulder. Willa nodded, commitment etched on her face. "I'll manage." They burst out of the cabin just as the first helicopter crested the tree line. Marcus's mind raced, recalling every hiking trail and hidden path he'd explored in these mountains. He grabbed Willa's hand, ignoring the spark of energy that jumped between them, and plunged into the dense forest. The sound of the helicopters grew louder, joined by shouts and the crackle of energy weapons. Captain Zorn's voice boomed through a loudspeaker, demanding Willa's surrender. Marcus pulled Willa behind a large boulder, both of them panting heavily. "We need to get to higher ground," he whispered. "There's a network of caves that might throw them off our trail." Willa nodded, but her legs gave out as she tried to stand. Marcus caught her, alarmed by how light she felt in his arms. Her skin was pulsating rapidly now, energy crackling along its surface. "The curse!" she gasped. "It's accelerating." Without hesitation, Marcus scooped her up. "Hold on," he said, setting off at a brisk pace up the mountainside. The terrain grew steeper and more treacherous. Loose rocks skittered under Marcus's feet as he navigated narrow ledges and dense undergrowth. Willa's body radiated heat and energy, leaving scorch marks on nearby vegetation. Each time Marcus's skin made contact with hers, a small discharge of energy jolted through him. After what felt like hours of grueling ascent, Marcus spotted a dark opening in the rock face ahead. "There!" he exclaimed, relief flooding through him. They ducked into the cave just as a Romulan search party passed overhead. Marcus set Willa down gently, her glowing form illuminating the rocky chamber. "We should be safe here for now," Marcus said, catching his breath. Willa looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and urgency. "Marcus, we don't have much time left. The curse, I can feel it consuming me." Marcus knelt beside her, his face etched with concern. "What can we do?" "We need to try again," Willa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "More intimately this time." Marcus nodded, understanding the implication. He leaned in, pulling Willa close. Their lips met, and a surge of energy exploded between them. The cave erupted in blinding light. Marcus felt as if every cell in his body was on fire, but he refused to let go. Rocks cracked and fell around them as the energy discharge shook the very mountain. When the light faded, Marcus found himself half buried in rubble. He pushed himself up, surprised by how easily the heavy rocks moved. His body tingled with residual energy, and he felt stronger, more alive than ever before. "Willa," he called out, fear gripping him. "I'm here," came her weak reply. Marcus rushed to her side, clearing away debris. Willa's form was more solid now, the pulsing of her skin slower and steadier. The curse hadn't broken completely, but its hold had weakened. "It helped," Willa said, managing a small smile. "But we're not done yet." Marcus nodded, helping her to her feet. "We need to keep moving. That energy discharge will have alerted both the Romulans and Earth's military." As if on cue, the sound of approaching vehicles echoed from outside the cave. Marcus peered out, spotting a convoy of military trucks winding up the mountain road. "Looks like Earth's gotten involved," he muttered. "Come on, we need to find another way out." Using his newfound strength, Marcus cleared the cave entrance. They emerged into the late morning sun, the forest around them scarred by their energy discharge. As they set off again, Willa leaned heavily on Marcus. "We have less than a day left," she warned. "If we don't break the curse by then..." Marcus squeezed her hand. "We'll figure it out, I promise." They made their way down the other side of the mountain, narrowly avoiding a Romulan patrol. The close call forced them to detour through a treacherous ravine. Marcus's enhanced abilities proved invaluable as he helped Willa navigate the dangerous terrain. As the sun began to set, they reached the outskirts of a small mountain town. Exhausted and running out of time, they paused to catch their breath. "We need to find somewhere safe," Marcus said, scanning the unfamiliar streets. "Somewhere we can make our final attempt to break this curse." Willa nodded weakly, her energy clearly fading. "And quickly. I can feel the curse fighting back harder now." As they stood there, weighing their options, the distant sound of helicopters once again filled the air. The race against time, the Romulans, and Earth's military was just getting started. Marcus took Willa's hand, his grit unwavering. "Let's go. Whatever happens, we're in this together." They slipped into the shadows of the small town, searching for a safe haven as multiple forces converged on their location. The fate of their relationship, Willa's life, and potentially Earth's future hung in the balance as night began to fall. Fall. The fate of their relationship, Willa's life, and potentially Earth's future hung in the balance as night began to descend upon the small mountain town. Marcus led Willa through the darkening streets, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow, alert for any sign of pursuit. The distant thrum of helicopters had faded, but he knew it was only a matter of time before their hunters picked up their trail again. "There," Willa whispered, pointing to a flickering neon sign. "The Pinewood Motel." The rundown establishment stood on the outskirts of town, its weathered facade a testament to better days long past. Marcus nodded, guiding Willa toward the office. As they approached, he could feel the heat radiating from her skin, her crystalline form pulsing with an increasingly unstable energy. A bell chimed as they entered the office. Behind the counter, an elderly man with a weathered face looked up from a dog-eared paperback. His roomy eyes narrowed as he took in their disheveled appearance. "Room for the night?" he asked, his voice gravelly with age and suspicion. Marcus nodded, fishing out a wad of crumpled bills from his pocket. "Just one night," he said, forcing a smile. "We're, just passing through." The old man, whose name tag read Frank, grunted and pushed a registration card across the counter. Marcus scribbled down false information, hyper-aware of Willa's labored breathing beside him. "Room 12, Frank said, sliding a key across the counter. "End of the row? No funny business, you hear?" Marcus mumbled his thanks, pocketing the key and guiding Willa out of the office. They made their way to room 12, the gravel crunching beneath their feet. Once inside, Marcus locked the door and drew the threadbare curtains. Willa collapsed onto the bed, her skin now pulsating with an intense, unstable energy that made the air around her crackle. Marcus knelt beside her, his face etched with concern. "How much time do we have?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Willa's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of fear and purpose. "Less than 12 hours, she replied. "The curse, it's fighting back harder now. We need to break it soon, or—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Marcus understood the stakes all too well. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "We need to try again," he said. "Here now. This might be our last chance." Willa nodded, her hand reaching out to caress Marcus's cheek. A spark jumped between them at the contact, causing the room's ancient TV to flicker to life momentarily. As they began to undress, the air in the room grew thick with tension and crackling energy. Marcus's skin tingled as he drew closer to Willa, her crystalline form now emitting a pulsing glow that bathed the room in an otherworldly light. Their lips met, and immediately the energy discharge intensified. The room's electrical systems went haywire, lights flickering wildly, the air conditioner sputtering to life before dying again, the alarm clock's digital display cycling through random numbers. Marcus gasped as waves of pleasure and pain coursed through his body. He could feel Willa trembling beneath him, her skin hot to the touch. The energy between them built to a crescendo, the very air seeming to vibrate with its intensity. Just as they teetered on the edge of something monumental, a sudden surge ripped through the room. The lights exploded in a shower of sparks, plunging them into darkness. The pulse of energy expanded outward, and Marcus heard the muffled pops of other electrical systems failing throughout the motel. In the sudden silence that followed, Marcus and Willa lay tangled together, both panting heavily. The glow from Willa's skin had dimmed, and her pulsing had slowed to a steadier rhythm. "Did it work?" Marcus asked, his voice hoarse. Willa shook her head, but there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Not completely," she said, "but we're close, Marcus. So close. The curse has weakened significantly." Marcus nodded, relief and dedication warring within him. He opened his mouth to speak, but was cut off by a sharp knock at the door. "Everything all right in there?" Frank's voice called out, tinged with annoyance and concern. Marcus scrambled to his feet, throwing on his shirt. "Fine," he called back. "Just a power surge or something." He cracked open the door to find Frank standing there, flashlight in hand. Over the old man's shoulder, Marcus could see other motel guests milling about in confusion. "Whole town's blacked out," Frank grumbled. "Never seen anything like it." Say, you two wouldn't know anything about this, would you? Marcus's mind raced. He needed to buy them time, keep Frank from asking too many questions. An idea struck him, and he leaned in close, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Listen, Frank, he said, I shouldn't be telling you this, but we're undercover agents on a top-secret mission. I can't give you details, but let's just say it involves some experimental technology. Frank's eyes widened, a mix of skepticism and intrigue crossing his weathered features. Before he could respond, Marcus continued, if anyone comes asking about us, anyone at all, it's crucial that you don't tell them we're here. The safety of the entire country could depend on it. Can I count on you, Frank? The old man straightened up, a glimmer of long-forgotten patriotic fervor in his eyes. He nodded solemnly. You can count on me, son. Mum's the word. As Frank shuffled away, Marcus closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. He turned to Willa, who had managed to sit up on the bed. That was quick thinking, she said, a weak smile playing on her lips. Marcus was about to respond when movement outside caught his eye. He peered through a gap in the curtains, his heart sinking as he spotted a sleek, dark shape descending in a nearby field. Romulan scout ship, he whispered. They found us. Willa's face paled, the pulsing of her skin intensifying. We're out of time, she said. We need help, Marcus. We can't face them alone. Marcus nodded, his mind racing. His eyes fell on an old rotary phone on the bedside table. It shouldn't have been working after the power surge, but something told him to try it anyway. To his surprise, he heard a dial tone. With a deep breath, he dialed a number he never thought he'd use, a secure line given to him years ago by a man he'd hoped never to see again. After 3 rings, a gruff voice answered. This is Colonel Hawkins. Colonel, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. This is Marcus Chen. We met in Dubai 5 years ago. You said if I ever needed help, well, I'm calling in that favor. And, sir, the fate of the world might just depend on it. As Marcus began to explain the situation, Willa watched him with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Outside, the quiet mountain town was about to become the center of a conflict that would determine not just their fate, but potentially that of Earth and its relations with the Romulan Empire. The final countdown had begun. Marcus's heart raced as he relayed the situation to Colonel Hawkins, his words tumbling out in a rushed whisper. We need immediate extraction, sir. Romulan forces are closing in, and we're out of time. Sit tight, Chen, Hawkins replied, his voice crisp with authority. My team's en route. ETA 5 minutes. As Marcus set down the receiver, a sharp crack echoed through the room. The walls began to vibrate, dust raining down from the ceiling. Willa's eyes widened, her skin pulsing with increasing intensity. Marcus, she gasped, it's happening again, but stronger this time. Before Marcus could respond, the door burst open. Colonel Hawkins strode in, his weathered face set in dogged drive. Chen, we need to move and... His words were cut short as a massive surge of energy exploded from Willa. The force slammed Hawkins against the wall, pinning him there. Marcus felt himself lifted off his feet, drawn inexorably towards Willa. The energy coalesced into a visible, pulsating sphere around them. Outside, chaos erupted. The crack of energy weapons pierced the night air, accompanied by shouts and the screech of tires on asphalt. Through the shimmering barrier of energy, Marcus glimpsed Romulan troops engaging with what must be Hawkins' special ops team. Bright bursts of weapons fire illuminated the darkened street, casting eerie shadows across panicked faces of fleeing townsfolk. The energy sphere expanded rapidly, engulfing the entire motel. Marcus watched in awe as the building's structure began to warp and twist around them, defying all known laws of physics. Furniture floated past, disintegrating into particles as it touched the edge of the sphere. At the center of the maelstrom, Marcus and Willa floated, their bodies drawn closer together. Marcus felt a tingling sensation spreading from his fingertips, intensifying as it raced up his arms. Where his skin touched Willa's, he saw their flesh begin to merge at a molecular level. A profound connection blossomed between them. Marcus gasped as Willa's memories flooded his mind. Centuries of Romulan history, the weight of royal responsibility, the crushing loneliness of her curse. In turn, he felt his own experiences flowing into her, his childhood on Earth, his years of training, the moment he first laid eyes on her. As their minds melded, Marcus sensed the curse unraveling. The malevolent energy that had plagued Willa for so long began to dissipate, replaced by something new, something powerful yet benign. Simultaneously, Marcus felt his own body changing. His DNA seemed to rewrite itself, adapting to the alien energy coursing through him. He was becoming something more than human, yet not quite Romulan, a bridge between two worlds. Outside their protective bubble, the battle had ground to a halt. The expanding energy field passed harmlessly through organic matter, but rendered all electronic devices useless. Romulan and human combatants alike found themselves suddenly disarmed, staring in bewilderment at their dead weapons. High above Earth's atmosphere, the Romulan warship's sensors blazed with alerts. On the bridge, Admiral Vex leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the readings. Recognition dawned on his face. "Hold position," he ordered, silencing the panicked chatter of his crew, "and open a channel to Earth's leaders. I believe it's time we had a talk." Back on the ground, the energy sphere reached its zenith. For a moment, everything hung in perfect stillness. Then, with a thunderous crack, it imploded. A shock wave rippled outward, flattening everything in its path. When the dust settled, Marcus and Willa lay unconscious at the center of a massive crater. The motel was gone, as were several surrounding blocks. Colonel Hawkins, thrown clear by the blast, staggered to his feet. Despite the ringing in his ears, he barked orders to his team, directing them to secure Marcus and Willa. As dawn broke, Marcus stirred. His eyes fluttered open, taking in the sterile white of a hastily erected medical tent. Beside him, Willa lay on a similar cot, her skin now smooth and human-like, free from its crystalline prison. A mix of human and Romulan medical personnel moved around them, their faces a blend of curiosity and concern. Marcus caught sight of his reflection in a nearby monitor. Faint, iridescent patterns danced across his skin, a visible sign of his transformation. The tent flap opened, admitting Colonel Hawkins. His uniform was singed and torn, but his bearing remained not slouching at all. "Chen," he nodded, then turned to Willa. "Your Highness, I hope you're feeling better." Willa sat up slowly, wonder in her eyes as she flexed her fingers. "The curse," she whispered. "It's gone." Hawkins cleared his throat. "We'll be moving you to a secure location shortly. There have been developments." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What kind of developments?" "The kind that reshape interstellar relations," Hawkins replied. "Your little light show caught some very important attention. The Romulan admiral in orbit is requesting immediate diplomatic talks." Marcus and Willa exchanged glances, the weight of their new reality settling upon them. As medics began prepping them for transport, Marcus couldn't help but wonder. In breaking the curse, had they unknowingly set in motion events that would forever change the course of human and Romulan history? As the weight of their transformation settled upon them, Marcus and Willa were swiftly moved from the makeshift medical tent. A team of operatives, both human and Romulan, escorted them to awaiting transport. The vehicle, a sleek fusion of Earth and Romulan technology, hummed to life as they boarded. Marcus caught a final glimpse of the devastated town through the tinted windows before the transport shot into the sky, its inertial dampeners masking the G-forces of their rapid ascent. Hours passed in a blur of high-altitude flight and multiple transfers. Each move was executed with precision, leaving Marcus and Willa disoriented and unable to discern their final destination. At last, they arrived at a facility unlike any Marcus had ever seen. Nestled deep within a mountain range, the complex was a marvel of engineering, its exterior seamlessly blended with the surrounding rock, while the interior boasted a fusion of human and Romulan architecture. Armed guards from both species patrolled the corridors, their wary glances betraying the novelty of their cooperation. As they stepped into the main atrium, a stern-faced woman in a lab coat approached. "I'm Dr. Elena Petrova," she said, her accent hinting at Russian origins. "We need to begin your examinations immediately." Before Marcus could protest, he was ushered away from Willa. He caught a glimpse of her being led in the opposite direction by a team of Romulan physicians, their faces set in unyielding commitment. "Wait!" Marcus called out, reaching for Willa. A surge of energy crackled between their outstretched fingertips, causing the lights to flicker. Dr. Petrova's eyes widened, and she quickly stepped between them. "I understand your concern," she said, her voice softer but still firm. "But it's crucial we examine you separately. Your safety, and potentially the safety of everyone in this facility, depends on it." Reluctantly, Marcus allowed himself to be guided to a state-of-the-art medical bay. As he lay on the examination table, Dr. Petrova and her team began their analysis. Advanced scanners hummed and beeped, capturing every minute detail of his physiology. "Incredible," Dr. Petrova murmured, studying a holographic display of Marcus's DNA. "The alterations are extensive, far beyond anything we've seen before." Marcus winced as a beam of energy passed over him. "What's happening to me?" he asked, his voice tight with apprehension. Dr. Petrova's eyes met his, a mix of scientific fascination and genuine concern in her gaze. "Your DNA has been fundamentally altered, Mr. Chen. You're exhibiting enhanced strength, accelerated healing, and—" She paused as another scan completed. "And the ability to generate small amounts of energy similar to what we observed in the Romulan princess." Marcus absorbed this information, his knees going weak. He flexed his hand, watching as tiny arcs of energy danced between his fingertips. "Is it permanent?" "As far as we can tell, yes," Dr. Petrova replied. "And there's a possibility these changes may continue to evolve." As Marcus processed this news, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Dr. Petrova rushed to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. "What's going on?" Marcus demanded, sitting up on the examination table. Dr. Petrova's face paled as she read the incoming data. "It's you and the princess," and she said. "You're generating massive amounts of energy despite being separated." Security footage appeared on the screen, showing Willa unconscious in her examination room, surrounded by a pulsating field of energy identical to the one now forming around Marcus. "We need to get you back together," Dr. Petrova said urgently. "The separation is causing physical stress to both of you. Your newly formed bond, it requires proximity." As if to emphasize her point, the lights in the medical bay flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Emergency backup power kicked in, casting an eerie red glow over the room. Marcus could feel the energy building within him, a pressure threatening to burst out of every pore. "Take me to her," he gasped, fighting to maintain control. Dr. Petrova barked orders into her communicator as she helped Marcus to his feet. They stumbled into the hallway where chaos reigned. Human and Romulan personnel rushed about, trying to contain the spreading energy disruption. As they neared Willa's location, Marcus felt the pull growing stronger. The very air seemed to crackle with potential. Rounding a corner, he finally saw her. Willa lay on a gurney, her body arching as waves of energy pulsed around her. Without hesitation, Marcus pushed past the startled medical team and reached for her hand. The moment their skin made contact, a blinding flash filled the corridor. The energy field surrounding them merged and then dissipated, leaving behind a profound sense of calm. Willa's eyes fluttered open, meeting Marcus's gaze. In that silent exchange, volumes were communicated. Their bond, transcending species and space itself, had only grown stronger. As the facility's systems slowly returned to normal, Marcus became aware of the crowd that had gathered. Among them stood two imposing figures, a Romulan admiral, his face etched with lines of authority, and a human woman whose bearing spoke of significant political power. Dr. Petrova stepped forward, addressing the newcomers. "Secretary General Hunter, Admiral Vex," she said, her voice steady despite the lingering tension in the air. "I believe we need to reevaluate our approach. What we're dealing with here is unlike anything we've ever encountered." The Secretary General nodded gravely. "Indeed, Doctor. It seems our summit has just become far more complex." Admiral Vex's eyes narrowed as he studied Marcus and Willa. "The implications of this bond are far-reaching," he said, his tone carefully neutral. For both our peoples. As Marcus helped Willa to her feet, he could feel the weight of their gazes. Whatever came next, he knew their lives would never be the same. The future of human-Romulan relations now rested, at least in part, on their shoulders. But before anyone could speak further, a new alarm shattered the uneasy calm. A young officer burst into the corridor, his face pale with urgency. "Sir," he addressed the Secretary General, "we're detecting multiple unknown craft entering Earth's atmosphere. Their energy signatures. They're like nothing we've ever seen." In an instant, the diplomatic tension was forgotten. Human and Romulan alike snapped into action, united by this new, unknown threat. As Marcus and Willa were ushered to a secure area, they exchanged a look of unwavering purpose. Whatever this new danger was, they would face it together. Together. The new threat loomed over them, but their commitment remained unshaken. Alarms continued to blare as Marcus and Willa were swiftly escorted from the examination area. Colonel Hawkins appeared, his face grim as he guided them through a maze of corridors. "We're moving you to a secure bunker," he explained, his voice tight with urgency. "Those unknown craft entering our atmosphere, they're not friendly." Dr. Petrova fell into step beside them, her lab coat fluttering as she matched their brisk pace. "I'm coming with you," she stated, her tone brooking no argument. "Your physiological bond is still unstable. You'll need medical supervision." They descended into the depths of the facility, passing through multiple security checkpoints. The walls seemed to grow thicker, the air cooler and more still. Above them, they could hear the muffled sounds of the complex going into lockdown, the heavy thud of blast doors sealing shut, the hum of energy shields activating. In the bunker's command center, Secretary General Hunter and Admiral Vex stood before a massive holographic display. The room buzzed with activity as human and Romulan personnel worked side by side, their former animosity forgotten in the face of a common threat. 7 ships, Admiral Vex reported, his eyes narrowing as he studied the tactical readout. Kelvon in origin. Marcus felt Willa tense beside him. "Kelvon," she whispered, "but they've never shown interest in this sector before." Before anyone could respond, the main screen flickered to life. A harsh, angular face filled the display, distinctly alien, with iridescent scales and multifaceted eyes. "I am Supreme Overlord Zax of the Kelvon Imperium," the being announced, its voice a grating screech. "We demand the immediate surrender of the abomination you harbor, the human-Romulan hybrid. This violation of the natural order threatens the purity of all galactic species." The command center erupted into chaos. Marcus felt all eyes turned to him, a mix of fear and uncertainty in their gazes. Willa's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. Suddenly, a surge of energy pulsed between them. The bunker's lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness for a heart-stopping moment before emergency power kicked in. Dr. Petrova's eyes widened as she studied the readings on her handheld scanner. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your quantum entanglement, it's growing stronger. The stress of the situation seems to be accelerating the process." Above them, the first Kelvon attack struck. The bunker shook, dust raining down from the ceiling. Reports flooded in of precision strikes against military installations worldwide. Power grids failed, communication networks went dark. In orbit, the hastily assembled human-Romulan fighter squadron engaged the Kelvon ships, but their weapons proved ineffective against the alien shields. The command center watched in horror as fighter after fighter winked out of existence on the tactical display. Admiral Vex turned to Secretary General Hunter, his face set in unwavering grit. "We need to use them," he said, nodding towards Marcus and Willa. "Their energy signature. It might be our only chance to penetrate the Kelvon defenses." Colonel Hawkins bristled. "You can't be serious. We don't even understand what's happening to them." "We don't have a choice," Dr. Petrova interjected. "Conventional weapons are useless. If we can harness their energy, amplify it somehow." The argument raged on, but Marcus tuned it out. He looked at Willa, seeing his own mix of fear and grit reflected in her eyes. They both knew what had to be done. "We'll do it," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the debate. The room fell silent. Whatever you need us to do, we're ready. The next hour passed in a blur of frantic activity. A team of scientists, led by Dr. Petrova, worked to modify a prototype energy-focusing platform. Marcus and Willa underwent a battery of tests, each surge of power between them stronger than the last. As they prepared to enter the reinforced chamber housing the device, Marcus pulled Willa close. For a moment, the chaos around them faded away. It was just the two of them, bound by something beyond blood or species. "Whatever happens," Willa whispered, her forehead resting against his, "we face it together." Marcus nodded, words unnecessary between them. They stepped onto the platform, hands clasped tightly. Around them, scientists made last-minute adjustments, while military personnel stood ready, weapons drawn against any unexpected developments. Through the chamber's view screen, they could see the Kelvon ships beginning their approach for the final assault. The fate of Earth, of human-Romulan relations, of the galaxy itself, it all rested on what happened in the next few moments. Dr. Petrova's voice came through the intercom, tense but steady. "We're ready to begin. Remember, focus on each other. Let the energy flow naturally between you." Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the power building within him. Beside him, Willa's skin began to shimmer with barely held back energy. As one, they closed their eyes and opened themselves to the bond that connected them. The chamber filled with a blinding light as their combined energy surged through the focusing array. In orbit, the Kelvon ships faltered, their impenetrable shields flickering as an unknown force washed over them. On the ground and in space, human and Romulan forces watched in awe as the seemingly unstoppable Kelvon invasion ground to a halt. But for Marcus and Willa, locked in their energy-fueled embrace, the battle had only just begun. The moment their hands joined on the platform, an unexpected surge of power coursed through them. The device, designed to harness their unique energy signature, began to glow with an intense blue light that filled the chamber. Dr. Petrova's eyes widened as she watched the readings on her instruments spike far beyond their initial calculations. "Stabilize the power flow," she shouted to her team, her fingers flying over the control panel. The facility shook violently as the Kelvon ships initiated their final assault. Through the view screen, Marcus and Willa watched in horror as energy beams rained down on major cities, causing widespread destruction. The ground beneath them trembled as multiple beams converged on their location. "They've targeted the facility," Colonel Hawkins yelled, his voice barely audible over the alarms. Marcus tightened his grip on Willa's hand, feeling the energy building between them. It was unlike anything they had experienced before, a raw, primal force that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. "Willa," he gasped, struggling to form words as the power threatened to overwhelm him. "I think we need to let go, to release it all at once." She nodded, understanding without need for further explanation. As one, they closed their eyes and surrendered to the energy flowing through them. The effect was immediate and staggering. A massive pulse erupted from their joined hands, expanding rapidly outward. It engulfed the facility in a matter of seconds, the blue light so bright it was visible even through closed eyelids. In orbit, the Kelvon ships faltered as the energy wave washed over them. Their once impenetrable shields flickered and failed, leaving them exposed and vulnerable. But the pulse didn't stop there. It continued to expand, racing across the planet's surface and out into space. As it passed, something extraordinary happened. Technology of both human and Romulan began to transform and merge. In the command center, Admiral Vex and Secretary General Hunter watched in awe as their systems evolved before their eyes. Screens flickered, rearranging themselves into more efficient configurations. Data streams merged, creating a unified interface that seamlessly blended both species' technology. "Impossible," Admiral Vex breathed, his stoic facade cracking in the face of this unprecedented event. On the surface, weapon systems activated automatically. Missile silos that had lain dormant for decades hummed to life, their payloads enhanced by the passing energy wave. They launched without human intervention, streaking towards the now defenseless Kelvon ships. As chaos reigned in orbit, a new player entered the field. A massive ship dwarfing even the Kelvon vessels, appeared at the edge of the solar system. Its design was unlike anything seen before, sleek, almost organic in appearance. "Sir," a young officer called out, her voice filled with awe and trepidation, "we're receiving a transmission from the new vessel." They identify themselves as the Guardians. Before anyone could respond, the energy wave finally dissipated. In the focusing chamber, Marcus and Willa collapsed, the immense power they had channeled leaving them drained and unconscious. Medical teams rushed in, carefully moving them to gurneys. Dr. Petrova scanned them with her newly enhanced medical tricorder, her brow furrowing at the results. Their physiologies, they've merged even further. I'm not sure we can classify them as either human or Romulan anymore. As Marcus and Willa were wheeled to the medical bay, the facility around them seemed to come alive. Damaged sections began to repair themselves, walls and floors shifting to create more efficient layouts. The entire building was evolving, adapting to the new reality created by the energy pulse. In orbit, Supreme Overlord Zax found himself in an untenable position. His ships, once the pride of the Kelvon fleet, now floated helplessly as the newly empowered Earth-Romulan vessels surrounded them. The massive Guardian ship loomed in the background, its presence alone enough to quell any thoughts of further resistance. "This is Supreme Overlord Zax," he transmitted, his grating voice subdued. "We request a ceasefire." On Earth, the effects of the pulse continued to manifest. Cities damaged by the Kelvon attack began to rebuild themselves at an astonishing rate. Communication systems evolved into a global network that allowed for instant, almost telepathic exchanges of information. In the medical bay, Marcus and Willa lay side by side, their unconscious forms still emanating residual energy. Dr. Petrova worked tirelessly, monitoring their condition while trying to understand the full scope of the changes they had undergone. A gasp from one of her assistants drew her attention. "Doctor, look at this," the young medic said, pointing to a screen displaying global medical data. "It's not just them. Humans and Romulans everywhere are showing signs of accelerated healing and enhanced cognitive abilities." Before Dr. Petrova could fully process this information, a commotion at the door caught her attention. Admiral Vex and Secretary General Hunter entered, their faces a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "Doctor," Secretary General Hunter began, "we need to know when they'll wake up. The Guardians have requested a meeting with us, the Kelvon leadership, and—" She paused, glancing at the unconscious forms of Marcus and Willa. "And them." As if on cue, Marcus and Willa began to stir. Their eyes fluttered open simultaneously, locking onto each other with an intensity that made everyone in the room take a step back. Without speaking, they sat up, their movements perfectly synchronized. When they finally broke their gaze and looked around the room, it was clear that something profound had changed. Their eyes held a depth of knowledge and understanding that seemed to transcend their individual experiences. "We're ready," Marcus and Willa said in unison, their voices carrying an otherworldly resonance that echoed through the minds of everyone present. As they stood, preparing to face the consequences of their actions in the new reality they had inadvertently created, one thing became abundantly clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. The era of separation between humans and Romulans had come to an end, and a new chapter in galactic history was about to unfold. The moment Marcus and Willa opened their eyes, a flood of information overwhelmed their senses. The medical bay around them pulsed with an alien energy, machines humming with newfound efficiency. Dr. Petrova's face came into focus, her expression a mix of awe and concern as she studied the readouts on her enhanced medical tricorder. "Extraordinary," she muttered, her eyes darting between the couple and her instruments. "Your neural patterns are completely synchronized. I've never seen anything like this." Marcus turned to Willa, their eyes locking. Words were unnecessary as thoughts flowed freely between them. In an instant, they shared a lifetime of memories, human scientific breakthroughs melding seamlessly with ancient Romulan wisdom. "We understand," they said in unison, their voices carrying an otherworldly resonance that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. Before Dr. Petrova could respond, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Secretary General Hunter and Admiral Vex strode in, their faces etched with equal parts exhaustion and urgency. "We need you both," Hunter said, her voice tight. "The Guardians have arrived, and they're requesting a meeting. With all of us." As Marcus and Willa rose from their beds, they became acutely aware of the changes rippling through the facility. Walls seemed to shift and reconfigure, adapting to some unseen purpose. Outside, through a newly formed window, they glimpsed a world in flux. The scars of the Kelvon attack were rapidly healing, buildings reconstructing themselves as if by magic. "The energy wave," Willa breathed, her mind processing the implications at lightning speed. "It's affecting everything." The group made their way through corridors that seemed to anticipate their movements, opening new pathways and sealing off others. They arrived at a conference room that had materialized specifically for this meeting. Inside, the air crackled with tension. Supreme Overlord Zax of the Kelvon stood in one corner, his once imposing frame now hunched and uncertain. His eyes darted nervously between the humans, Romulans, and the shimmering forms of the Guardian representatives. The architects, as they called themselves, were beings of pure energy. Their presence filled the room with a sense of ancient wisdom and cosmic power. As Marcus and Willa entered, the architects' attention focused on them with laser-like intensity. "The catalysts have arrived," one of the architects announced, his voice resonating directly in the minds of all present. "Now we may begin." What followed was a meeting unlike any in the history of Earth or Romulus. The architects laid out their proposal: Earth as a galactic hub, a new era of interspecies cooperation, and the sharing of Guardian knowledge to manage the rapid changes sweeping across the planet. As the implications of this new reality sank in, Marcus and Willa found themselves at the center of a cosmic storm. Their bond, their actions, had set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy. "You must be tested," another architect intoned, its form shimmering with barely held back power. "The trials ahead will determine your worthiness to shepherd this new age." Zax, seizing his moment, stepped forward. "And what of the Kelvins?" he asked, his grating voice subdued, but still carrying a hint of his former authority. "Surely there is a place for us in this new order?" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Marcus and Willa. In that moment, they understood the weight of their newfound position. Their decision here would set the tone for the ages to come. Drawing on their shared knowledge and the strange new power flowing between them, they spoke as one. "Redemption is possible," they said, their voices blending into a harmony that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. "But it must be earned through actions, not words." The architects nodded in approval, their energy forms pulsing with what might have been satisfaction. "Wise," they said. "The Kelvins will have their chance, as all species do. But now we must prepare for your first trial." As the meeting concluded and plans were set in motion, Marcus and Willa found themselves being led to a shimmering portal that had appeared in one wall of the conference room. The architect's words echoed in their minds. "Your test begins now, on a world far from here. Your success or failure will ripple across the cosmos." Hand in hand, they stepped towards the portal. Behind them, they could hear the frantic preparations beginning. Earth and Romulan leaders drafting statements, Kelvon representatives being escorted to temporary quarters, and the hum of a planet rapidly evolving beyond anything its inhabitants had ever imagined. As the light of the portal engulfed them, Marcus and Willa shared a final thought. Whatever lay ahead, whatever challenges they would face them together. The portal flared, and in a flash of brilliance, they were gone. Off to a distant world in the first of many trials that would shape the future of the galaxy. As the light from the portal faded, Marcus and Willa found themselves aboard a sleek, otherworldly vessel. The interior pulsed with an ethereal energy, its surfaces smooth and seamless. An architect materialized before them, its form shimmering like starlight. "Your journey begins," it intoned, its voice resonating in their minds. "This vessel will transport you to your first trial." With a gesture from the architect, the ship's exterior became transparent, revealing the vastness of space. Earth, a blue marble suspended in the void, grew smaller as they accelerated away from their home world. The vessel surged forward, stars blurring into streaks of light. Marcus and Willa felt a momentary disorientation as the ship transitioned into faster-than-light travel. The cosmos outside became a kaleidoscope of colors and patterns beyond human comprehension. As they hurtled through space, Marcus and Willa's hybrid physiology began to react to the Guardian technology surrounding them. Their vision blurred, replaced by a series of intense shared visions. They saw flashes of potential futures, Earth as a bustling galactic hub, ships of countless designs coming and going. They glimpsed past events, the first contact between humans and Romulans, the rise of the Kelvon Empire. Each vision added layers to their understanding of the cosmic balance they now influenced. "What's happening to us?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with a mix of wonder and apprehension. Willa squeezed his hand, her eyes wide. I think we're seeing through time itself." The visions intensified, overwhelming their senses. They saw civilizations rise and fall, planets born and destroyed, the very fabric of the universe unfolding before them. Just as it became too much to bear, the images faded, leaving them gasping and clutching each other. "Your perceptions expand," the architect explained, its form flickering with approval. "This is but a fraction of the knowledge you must comprehend to fulfill your roles." Hours passed as Marcus and Willa recovered from the experience, discussing what they had seen in hushed tones. The ship's systems provided them with sustenance and comfort, anticipating their needs before they could voice them. Suddenly, the kaleidoscope of FTL travel faded, revealing a planet unlike any they had seen before. Its surface was a patchwork of environments, vast oceans, crystalline mountains, and swirling energy vortexes. "Nexus Prime," the architect announced, "the crossroads of galactic civilizations, your trial awaits." The ship descended through the atmosphere, landing on a platform that seemed to materialize from thin air. As the hatch opened, Marcus and Willa stepped out into an alien world. They were greeted by a shimmering holographic form, a being of pure data and light. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," it said, its voice a pleasant hum. "I am Zephyr, the custodian of this world. I maintain neutrality and oversee all interspecies interactions here." Zephyr's form flickered as it processed information. "The architects have informed me of your purpose. Your trial begins immediately. You must navigate a complex diplomatic situation utilizing your newfound abilities." Before Marcus and Willa could ask for clarification, Zephyr projected a holographic map of a nearby facility. "3 species are locked in a centuries-long conflict over our planet's unique resources: the aquatic Merkai, the silicon-based crystallines, and the energy beings known as the Luminor. Each claims ancestral rights to Nexus Prime." The map zoomed in on a large, circular chamber. "They await you in the negotiation hall. Good luck." As they approached the hall, Marcus and Willa could feel the tension emanating from within. They shared a glance, their telepathic bond conveying a mix of drive and uncertainty. The door slid open, revealing a scene of hardly restrained chaos. 3 distinct groups occupied different sections of the chamber, their representatives glaring at each other with undisguised hostility. The Merkai, with their iridescent scales and webbed appendages, floated in large water-filled pods. The crystallines sparkled under the room's lights, their angular bodies refracting rainbows across the walls. The Luminor, barely visible except for faint outlines of energy, pulsed with hardly restrained power. As Marcus and Willa entered, all eyes turned to them. The room fell silent, a mix of curiosity and skepticism radiating from the assembled delegates. Marcus stepped forward, drawing on his enhanced strength to project an air of impartiality. "Greetings," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "We are here to help purpose your conflict." Willa joined him, her diplomatic experience as a former Romulan princess coming to the fore. "We understand each of you has a valid claim to Nexus Prime. Our goal is to find a solution that benefits all." The leader of the Merkai, a towering figure with bioluminescent patterns rippling across its skin, spoke first. "How can you possibly understand our needs? You are outsiders, ignorant of our history and our rights." Before Marcus or Willa could respond, the crystalline representative interjected, its voice a melodic chime. For once, I agree with the Merkai. This conflict has raged for centuries. What makes you think you can solve it in a day? The Luminor representative, a swirling vortex of energy, pulsed with skepticism. Your presence here is an insult. This is our world, not a training ground for your abilities. Marcus and Willa shared a look, realizing the enormity of the task before them. As they prepared to address the assembled delegates, they became aware of a new sensation, an ability to perceive the underlying emotions and motivations of the different species. The Merkai's hostility masked a deep fear of losing their aquatic habitats. The crystalline's arrogance stemmed from a belief that their silicon-based life was superior and more deserving of the planet's resources. The Luminor's dismissiveness concealed a desperate need for the energy sources that Nexus Prime provided. Understanding dawned on Marcus and Willa. This wasn't just a conflict over resources. It was a clash of cultures, fears, and deeply held beliefs. As they stepped forward to begin the negotiations in earnest, they knew that their newfound abilities would be pushed to their limits. Little did they know that beneath the surface of these already tense negotiations, a hidden threat was about to explode into the open, testing not just their diplomatic skills, but their ability to act decisively in a crisis. Crisis when a blaring alarm cut through the tension in the negotiation chamber. The holographic form of Zephyr materialized, its usual calm demeanor replaced by urgent flickering. "Apologies for the interruption," Zephyr announced, "but we've received a priority distress signal from Outpost Zeta 9. The architects have designated this as part of your trial." Marcus and Willa exchanged a glance, their bond transmitting a mix of concern and persistence. The negotiations would have to wait. "We understand," Willa said, addressing the assembled delegates. "We must attend to this emergency, but we will return to continue our discussions." As they hurried back to their vessel, Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline. "I hope we're prepared for whatever we're about to face." The ship's AI greeted them as they boarded, its voice resonating through the cabin. "Outpost Zeta 9 is a crucial waypoint for interstellar travelers. The nature of the distress call is unclear, but it appears to be a medical emergency." The journey was brief but intense. As they approached the space station, they saw its sleek form marred by flickering lights and erratic energy signatures. Something was terribly wrong. Docking procedures were a blur of efficiency, and soon Marcus and Willa found themselves stepping onto the station. The usual bustle of a busy waypoint was replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by distant alarms and the occasional scream. Dr. Lyra Hunter, a woman with sharp features and worried eyes, met them at the airlock. "Thank the stars you're here," she said, her voice strained. "We're facing a crisis unlike anything I've ever seen." As they hurried through the corridors, Dr. Hunter briefed them on the situation. A virulent alien pathogen had infected most of the station's inhabitants, causing rapid and unpredictable genetic mutations. The uninfected survivors were barricaded in the medical bay, desperately searching for a cure. "The infected are transforming," Dr. Hunter explained, her words punctuated by the sound of their footsteps on the metal floor. "They're becoming hybrids, exhibiting traits from various species across the galaxy." They reached the medical bay, a scene of controlled chaos. Monitors beeped urgently, displaying cascades of genetic data. Through a transparent barrier, they could see the infected. Beings twisted into new forms, some beautiful, others nightmarish. Marcus and Willa shared a look of realization. Their unique hybrid physiology might hold the key to understanding and potentially curing the outbreak. "We'll help in any way we can," Marcus said, rolling up his sleeves. Willa nodded, already moving towards a complex medical scanner. "Our abilities might allow us to interface with your equipment more efficiently." As they set to work, the full scope of the challenge became clear. Marcus used his enhanced strength to restrain infected individuals for testing, his muscles straining against their mutated forms. Willa's diplomatic skills came into play as she calmed panicked survivors, her voice a soothing balm in the chaos. Their telepathic bond allowed them to work in perfect synchronization, processing vast amounts of genetic data at unprecedented speeds. Hours blended together as they raced against time, the station's systems groaning under the strain of the outbreak. Suddenly, a new alarm blared through the medical bay. Dr. Hunter's face paled as she read the incoming data. "The life support systems are failing," she announced. "The pathogen has spread to our bioengineered plants. We're losing oxygen production." Marcus stepped forward, his mind already racing with possible solutions. "I'll lead a team to repair the damaged systems," he said, drawing on newly acquired technical knowledge. "We'll need to improvise, but we can do it." As Marcus departed with a group of engineers, Willa redoubled her efforts in the medical bay. Her fingers flew over holographic interfaces, her mind processing genetic sequences faster than any computer. Then a breakthrough. Willa's eyes widened as she made a startling discovery. "The pathogen," she called out to Dr. Hunter, "it's not natural. It's an ancient guardian creation designed to accelerate evolution in primitive species." Dr. Hunter rushed over, her fatigue momentarily forgotten. "How is that possible?" "Artifact smugglers," Willa explained, piecing together the puzzle. "They must have unknowingly activated a dormant sample." With this new information, Willa had an idea. She reached out through her bond with Marcus, sharing her discovery and formulating a plan. Using their unique genetic structure as a template, they began to create a stable pattern that could guide the infected individual's mutations towards a manageable form. It was a delicate balance requiring all of their newfound abilities and the full processing power of the station's computers. As Marcus returned from successfully stabilizing the life support systems, they were ready. Together, they used the station's transmitters to broadcast their genetic template throughout Outpost Zeta 9. The effect was almost immediate. The infected individuals began to stabilize, their wild mutations settling into more controlled forms. Some retained beneficial adaptations, while others reverted closer to their original states. As the crisis subsided, Marcus and Willa found themselves facing a new challenge. The stabilized hybrids, now possessing enhanced abilities, were unsure of their place in galactic society. Some expressed a desire to form their own community, while others wished to return to their original worlds. Before they could fully address this complex issue, an urgent communication from Earth demanded their attention. The message revealed a startling development. Their actions had inspired a movement among humans and Romulans to voluntarily undergo hybrid transformation. Marcus and Willa exchanged a worried glance. This development threatened the fragile peace between Earth and the Romulan Empire, potentially undoing all they had worked for. As they prepared to depart Outpost Zeta 9, the Guardian ship's AI announced that their next trial awaited. But now, torn between continuing their assigned tasks and returning to Earth to address the growing crisis, Marcus and Willa faced a difficult decision. The weight of their responsibilities pressed down on them, even as they became aware of subtle changes in their own physiology. Their hybrid abilities seemed to be evolving, responding to the challenges they'd faced. As they stood on the threshold of their ship, the future stretched before them, filled with uncertainty and potential. Whatever they decided, they knew their journey was not nearly finished. The galaxy was changing, and they were at the heart of that change. Marcus took Willa's hand, their bond humming with shared willpower. "Where to next?" he asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. Willa squeezed his hand, her eyes reflecting the stars visible through the station's viewport. "Wherever we're needed most," she replied, as they stepped into their ship and into the next chapter of their cosmic odyssey. Willa's eyes met Marcus's, a silent understanding passing between them. The crisis on Earth was urgent, but they knew their path forward lay in completing the trials set before them. "To Frostholm," Willa said, her voice steady despite the weight of their decision. As their ship streaked through space, Marcus and Willa used the journey to prepare for the challenges ahead. The ship's AI provided them with data on Frostholm's extreme climate, and the two species locked in conflict over its resources. Upon entering the planet's atmosphere, they were greeted by a world of white. Endless ice fields stretched to the horizon, broken only by jagged mountain ranges and deep crevasses. The ship touched down on a flat expanse of ice, its landing gear crunching through a layer of fresh snow. As they stepped out of the airlock, the cold hit them like a physical force. Even with their advanced thermal suits, Marcus and Willa could feel the bite of the 100-degree air. Their breath froze instantly, creating small clouds of ice crystals with each exhalation. A holographic projection of Zephyr materialized before them, its form shimmering against the stark white background. "Welcome to Frostholm," the custodian said, its voice somehow carrying over the howling wind. "Your task here is twofold. Survive in this harsh environment and tenacity the territorial dispute between the glacians and the thermites." Marcus nodded, his enhanced strength already proving useful as he unloaded supplies from the ship. "What can you tell us about the two species?" Zephyr's form flickered as a gust of wind passed through it. "The glacians are ice-adapted humanoids who claim ancestral rights to the entire planet. The thermites are silicon-based creatures that inhabit the deep thermal vents. Both assert equal claim to Frostholm's limited resources." Willa pulled up a holographic map of the planet, studying the terrain. "We'll need to establish a base of operations before making contact with either group." Marcus set to work immediately, using his enhanced strength to carve blocks of ice from a nearby glacier. With practiced efficiency, he constructed a domed shelter, its thick walls providing insulation against the biting cold. As Marcus worked, Willa used her diplomatic skills to establish initial contact with both the glacian and thermite leaders. Through their bond, she shared the information she gleaned with Marcus, allowing them to piece together the complex history of the conflict. With their ice shelter complete, Marcus and Willa began their investigations in earnest. They trekked across vast ice fields, their thermal suits pushed to the limit as they battled against howling winds and treacherous terrain. Their first encounter with the glacians came during a vicious ice storm. Marcus and Willa sought shelter in a series of ice caves, only to find themselves face-to-face with a glacian hunting party. The ice-adapted humanoids stood nearly 2 meters tall, their pale blue skin covered in intricate patterns of frost. Willa stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We come seeking understanding," she said, her voice calm despite the tension in the air. The leader of the hunting party, a female glacian with eyes like chips of ice, regarded them warily. "You are the outworlders we were told about," she said, her voice as cold as the wind outside. "I am Frostheart. Come, we will take you to our elders." The journey to the glacian city was arduous, even with their guides. They traversed narrow ice bridges spanning bottomless chasms and climbed sheer cliffs of blue-white ice. The city itself was a marvel of engineering, carved entirely from a massive glacier. As they spoke with the glacian elders, Marcus and Willa began to understand the depth of the conflict. The glacians saw the thermites as invaders, creatures from the deep that threatened their way of life. Their meeting with the thermites proved equally challenging. To reach the silicon-based beings, Marcus and Willa had to dive into near-freezing waters, navigating a complex network of underwater caves to reach the thermal vents the thermites called home. The thermites were unlike any creatures they had encountered before. Their bodies glowed with internal heat, and they communicated through a complex language of light pulses and vibrations. Through careful negotiation and the use of translation devices, Willa managed to convey their purpose and learn the thermites' perspective on the conflict. As they worked to gain the trust of both species, Marcus and Willa faced numerous physical challenges. They scaled treacherous ice cliffs to reach isolated glacian outposts and dove into scalding thermal vents to study thermite farming techniques. Their efforts were nearly derailed when a massive ice storm struck, threatening to destroy their base camp. Marcus used his enhanced strength to reinforce their shelter, while Willa's quick thinking helped them ration their supplies until the storm passed. Throughout these trials, their bond grew stronger. In the quiet moments between challenges, Marcus and Willa found themselves relying on each other not just for survival, but for emotional support. The weight of their responsibilities was immense, but together they found the strength to carry on. As they delved deeper into their investigation, Marcus and Willa made a startling discovery. Hidden beneath the planet's ice sheets lay an ancient guardian facility, its existence unknown to both the glacians and thermites. The facility housed technology capable of terraforming Frostholm, potentially creating a more habitable environment for both species. However, activating this technology would require a delicate balance. They needed genetic samples from both the glacians and thermites, as well as a catalyst that only their unique hybrid DNA could provide. As they worked to collect the necessary samples and gain the cooperation of both species, Marcus and Willa found themselves at the center of a growing storm. A group of Glacian extremists, led by a fierce warrior named Frostfang, viewed their efforts as a threat to the Glacian way of life. Tensions reached a breaking point when Frostfang and his followers attempted to sabotage the Guardian facility. Marcus found himself locked in a grueling physical confrontation with Frostfang on the edge of a massive glacier, the fate of Frostholm hanging in the balance. Marcus fought with all his enhanced strength, but Frostfang's ice-adapted body gave him a significant advantage in the frigid environment. As the two grappled at the edge of a yawning crevasse, Willa's voice cut through the howling wind. "Marcus, the facility!" With a surge of effort, Marcus broke free from Frostfang's grip. He and Willa raced to the Guardian facility, their pursuers close behind. Inside, they worked in perfect synchronization, their bond allowing them to coordinate without words. Willa interfaced with the ancient controls while Marcus held off the Glacian extremists. The facility hummed to life, its systems responding to their hybrid DNA. As the terraforming process began, the ground beneath them shook violently. "It's working," Willa called out, her eyes fixed on a holographic display. "The planet's core is stabilizing." The tremors intensified, and then, as suddenly as they had begun, they stopped. An eerie silence fell over the facility. Frostfang and his followers stood in stunned disbelief as they watched the world outside transform. The endless ice fields began to give way to patches of rocky ground. In the distance, steam rose from newly formed hot springs. "What have you done?" Frostfang whispered, his voice a mixture of awe and fear. Marcus stepped forward, his stance firm but non-threatening. "We've given Frostholm a chance at balance, a world where both Glacians and Thermites can thrive." In the days that followed, Marcus and Willa worked tirelessly to help both species adapt to their changing world. The Glacians learned to cultivate the newly exposed soil, while the Thermites expanded their territory beyond the thermal vents. As the situation on Frostholm stabilized, Marcus and Willa prepared for their departure. They stood at the entrance of their ship, looking out over the transformed landscape. "We did it," Willa said, a note of wonder in her voice. "We actually changed an entire world." Marcus nodded, his expression thoughtful. "But at what cost? We fundamentally altered the lives of two species. Are we ready for that kind of responsibility?" Before Willa could respond, the ship's AI interrupted. "Incoming transmission from Earth. Priority 1. They exchanged a worried glance before stepping into the ship. As the doors closed behind them, neither could shake the feeling that their actions on Frostholm had set something much larger in motion. The ship lifted off, leaving the newly balanced world of Frostholm behind. As they broke through the atmosphere, the vastness of space stretched out before them. Their next destination appeared on the navigation screen: New Eden. The journey to New Eden was tense, filled with speculation about the urgent message from Earth and the ramifications of their actions on Frostholm. As they approached the lush planet, both Marcus and Willa gasped at the sight before them. New Eden's surface was a riot of colors and movement. Vast swathes of land seemed to shift and change even as they watched. The ship's sensors registered rapid fluctuations in atmospheric composition and seismic activity. "What's happening down there?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with concern. Willa's fingers flew over the control panel. "It's as if the entire planet is in flux. These readings, they're off the charts." As their ship descended through the turbulent atmosphere, they caught glimpses of the chaos below. Forests grew and receded in a matter of minutes. New species of animals darted across the landscape, evolving before their eyes. They landed in a clearing near the main human settlement. As the ship's doors opened, they were hit by a wave of humid air filled with the sense of unfamiliar flora. Governor Elias Thorne stood waiting for them, his face etched with worry. "Thank the stars you're here," Thorne said, rushing forward to greet them. "We're at our wits' end. The planet, it's changing faster than we can adapt." Marcus surveyed the settlement. Makeshift barriers had been erected to hold back the encroaching jungle. In the distance, he could hear the cries of unknown creatures. "When did this start?" Willa asked, already pulling out her portable scanner. "About a week ago," Thorne replied. At first it was subtle, plants growing faster than usual. Then animals started changing. Now, he gestured helplessly at the shifting landscape around them. Marcus and Willa shared a look of understanding. The energy ripple from Frostholm, Marcus said softly. It must have triggered something here. They wasted no time in getting to work. Willa interfaced with the colony's environmental monitoring systems, her hybrid abilities allowing her to process the flood of data at superhuman speeds. Marcus, meanwhile, helped reinforce the settlement's defenses against the rapidly evolving wildlife. As night fell, they gathered with Governor Thorne and his advisors to share their findings. Willa projected a holographic map of the planet, highlighting areas of intense activity. There's a network of ancient technology beneath the surface, she explained, similar to what we found on Frostholm, but far more extensive. It's designed to guide planetary evolution, but something has sent it into overdrive. Can you shut it down? Thorne asked, hope evident in his voice. Marcus shook his head. It's not that simple. This technology is deeply integrated with the planet's core. Shutting it down could have catastrophic consequences. Their discussion was interrupted by an alarm. One of Thorne's advisors rushed in, her face pale. Governor, we've got incoming. It's a Kelvon ship. The room erupted into chaos. The humans' history with the Kelvons was fraught with conflict, and their arrival now, in the midst of this crisis, could spell disaster. Marcus raised his voice to be heard over the din. Everyone, please, we need to approach this calmly. The Kelvons might be here for the same reason we are, to understand what's happening. Willa nodded in agreement. We should meet with them. Our experience with interspecies diplomacy could be crucial here. As the Kelvon ship descended through New Eden's turbulent atmosphere, Marcus and Willa prepared to face this new challenge. They knew that balancing the needs of the human colonists, the Kelvon expedition, and the rapidly evolving planet would test their abilities and their bond like never before. The Kelvon ship touched down in a clearing hastily prepared by the colonists. As the ship's ramp lowered, Marcus and Willa stood at the forefront of the welcoming party, ready to bridge the gap between humans and Kelvons in this time of crisis. As the Kelvon ship's ramp descended, revealing a delegation of the insectoid aliens, Marcus and Willa exchanged a worried glance. They had barely begun to understand the rapidly evolving ecosystem of New Eden, and now they faced a potential diplomatic crisis. Before they could address the new arrivals, a blinding light engulfed them. When their vision cleared, Marcus and Willa found themselves standing in a vast, sterile chamber. The walls pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and before them stood three crystalline figures, their forms shimmering with contained power. Marcus, Willa, we are the emissaries of the cosmic architects, the central figure spoke, its voice resonating directly in their minds. I am Alpha. With me are Beta and Gamma. Willa stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overtaking her initial shock. Where are we? How did we get here? You are aboard Nexus Omega, a space station orbiting a red dwarf star, Beta answered, gesturing to a view screen that materialized beside them. The image showed a massive structure floating in the void, dwarfing the Guardian transport vessel that had brought them to New Eden. We've been monitoring your progress, Gamma added. Your actions on Frostholm and the subsequent events in New Eden have accelerated certain cosmic plans. It is time for you to face your greatest challenge yet. Marcus tensed, his enhanced muscles coiled with anticipation. What challenge? Alpha's crystalline form pulsed with energy as it spoke. You must find Genesis Prime, the birthplace of all sentient life in our galaxy. It has remained hidden for eons, protected by technology beyond the comprehension of younger races. But why us? Willa asked, her mind already racing with the implications of such a discovery. Your unique hybrid physiology and the bond you share make you ideal candidates, Beta explained. However, to succeed, you must temporarily separate. The words hit Marcus and Willa like a physical blow. They had faced countless challenges together, their bond growing stronger with each trial. The thought of separation was almost inconceivable. Marcus, you will lead a team to the Void Nebula. Gamma continued, unaffected by their discomfort. Willa, you will explore the ruins on Zephyria. Each location holds clues to Genesis Prime's whereabouts. As the emissaries outlined the details of their missions, Marcus and Willa felt a surge of energy between them. A visible aura surrounded their bodies, pulsing in sync with their accelerated heartbeats. The cosmic architects observed this phenomenon with keen interest, their crystalline forms vibrating in response. "You have 1 hour to prepare," Alpha announced. "Use this time wisely." With a gesture, the emissaries vanished, leaving Marcus and Willa alone in the chamber. They turned to each other, their eyes conveying a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I don't like this," Marcus said, his voice low. "Separating us feels wrong." Willa nodded, reaching out to take his hand. The moment their fingers intertwined, their auras flared brightly. "I know, but think of what we could learn about our origins, about the nature of life itself." They spent the next hour in intense preparation, reviewing data on their respective destinations and discussing strategies. As the deadline approached, they stood at the entrance to their separate launch bays. Marcus pulled Willa close, their foreheads touching. In that moment of connection, their thoughts flowed freely between them, a jumble of fears, hopes, and unspoken promises. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, drawing strength from their physical and emotional bond. "Stay safe," Marcus whispered as they parted. "You too," Willa replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Remember, no matter how far apart we are, our bond remains." With a final shared look, they turned and boarded their respective ships. Marcus's vessel, a sleek research craft designed to withstand intense gravitational forces, hummed to life around him. He nodded to his team, Dr. Elara Voss, a renowned astrophysicist, and Captain Thorne, whose weathered face spoke of years navigating treacherous space. As they entered the Void Nebula, Marcus's enhanced senses came alive. He perceived patterns in the gravitational waves, guiding Captain Thorne through the treacherous currents. "There!" he pointed, his voice tense with concentration. "That eddy! It's hiding something!" Meanwhile, Willa's shuttle touched down on Zephyria's scorching surface. The heat hit her like a wall as she stepped out, but her hybrid physiology adapted quickly. Professor Zane, an expert in ancient civilizations, squinted against the glare of 3 suns. "The ruins should be just over that dune," he said, pointing to a shimmering horizon. As both teams pressed forward in their missions, neither Marcus nor Willa noticed the sleek, dark ships trailing them at a distance. Supreme Overlord Zax of the Kelvon Empire watched their progress through encrypted feeds, his compound eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Follow them," he ordered his operatives, "but do not engage. Let them lead us to Genesis Prime. Then we will claim its power for the glory of the Kelvon Empire." In the Void Nebula, Marcus's ship suddenly lurched, caught in a powerful gravitational eddy. Alarms blared as the hull creaked under the strain. "We're losing structural integrity," Dr. Voss shouted over the din. Marcus closed his eyes, reaching deep within himself. He felt the energy flowing through his body, an extension of the bond he shared with Willa. With a grunt of effort, he extended his hands, manipulating the energy field around the ship. The alarms fell silent as the vessel stabilized. On Zephyria, Willa's team approached a massive stone archway covered in intricate glyphs. As they drew closer, the ground beneath them trembled. Ancient defense systems, dormant for millennia, hummed to life. "Get back!" Willa shouted, pushing her companions to safety as a barrage of energy bolts erupted from hidden emplacements. Drawing on her diplomatic experience in growing powers, she stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We come seeking knowledge, not conquest," she called out, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. The attacks ceased, and the archway began to glow with a soft, welcoming light. As they delved deeper into their respective challenges, both Marcus and Willa were struck by intense, shared visions. Despite the vast distance between them, their mental link pulsed with images of a pristine world, teeming with life unlike anything they had ever seen. They glimpsed vast repositories of knowledge, technologies beyond their comprehension, and the promise of answers to the most fundamental questions of existence. In the Void Nebula, Marcus's team made a breakthrough. "Look at this," Dr. Voss called out, her eyes wide with excitement. This spatial anomaly, its energy signature matches the theoretical models for Genesis Prime's cloaking technology. At that same moment, on Zephyria, Willa deciphered a complex star map hidden within the ruins. It's a set of coordinates, she breathed, her heart racing. In uncharted space, this could be it. As both teams prepared to relay their findings, a sense of foreboding washed over Marcus and Willa. Through their bond, they felt each other's sudden alarm. Something was wrong. In the shadows of the Void Nebula and the ruins of Zephyria, Kelvon operatives moved into position, weapons primed. The race to Genesis Prime had entered a new dangerous phase, and the destiny of the universe hung in the balance. Balance. In that instant, chaos erupted. A deafening explosion rocked Marcus's ship, sending him and his crew sprawling. Warning klaxons blared as the vessel's lights flickered ominously. Through the viewport, Marcus glimpsed the sleek, predatory form of a Kelvon stealth ship emerging from the nebula's swirling gases. "We're under attack," Captain Thorne shouted, scrambling to his feet and racing to the helm. "They've hit us with some kind of electromagnetic pulse. Main systems are offline." Marcus's mind raced, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to process the situation in microseconds. He felt a surge of energy course through his body, instinctively channeling it outward. A shimmering bubble of force expanded around the ship, deflecting a barrage of plasma bolts from the Kelvon vessel. "How did you do that?" Dr. Voss gasped, her eyes wide with awe. "No time to explain," Marcus grunted, the strain of maintaining the shield evident in his voice. "We need to get systems back online and mount a counteroffensive." On Zephyria, Willa's team faced a different but equally dire threat. The ground beneath their feet trembled as hidden panels in the ruins slid open, disgorging a swarm of Kelvon shock troops. Their insectoid forms shimmered and blurred, advanced cloaking technology rendering them nearly invisible in the harsh sunlight. "Take cover," Willa shouted, pushing Professor Zane behind a fallen column. Her heightened senses tingled, allowing her to perceive the subtle distortions in the air that betrayed the Kelvon's positions. She reached out with her mind, interfacing with the ancient defense system she had earlier deactivated. With a thought, she reactivated a network of energy turrets. They swiveled and fired, their beams cutting through the Kelvon's cloaking fields and forcing them to scatter. As battle raged in two distant corners of the galaxy, Marcus and Willa felt their telepathic bond surge to life with unprecedented intensity. Images, tactics, and emotions flowed between them, transcending the vast gulfs of space. Their shared commitment and the heat of combat seemed to catalyze something within their hybrid physiologies. Marcus felt a new clarity and control over his energy manipulation abilities. He extended his hands, fingers splayed, and sent a pulse through the ship's systems. Displays flickered to life, and the hum of reactivated engines filled the air. "How did you do that?" Captain Thorne asked, amazement evident in his gruff voice. "Later," Marcus replied, his eyes fixed on the Kelvon ship visible through the viewport. "Right now, we need to shake them off and secure what we found." He placed his hands on the navigation console, interfacing directly with the ship's computers. The vessel lurched as Marcus guided it through a series of impossible maneuvers, using his enhanced perception of gravitational fields to plot a course through the nebula's hidden currents. The Kelvon ship pursued, firing wildly, but Marcus's piloting was too erratic, too perfectly attuned to the nebula's chaotic energies. With a final, gut-wrenching turn, he sent their ship plunging into the heart of the spatial anomaly they had discovered. On Zephyria, Willa led her team deeper into the ruins, using her knowledge of the ancient defenses to create a labyrinth of energy barriers and traps. The Kelvon forces, momentarily stymied, regrouped for another assault. "This way," Willa urged, guiding her companions down a narrow corridor. Her fingers traced glyphs on the wall, activating hidden mechanisms. A section of the floor slid away, revealing a spiraling staircase descending into darkness. As they hurried down the steps, Willa felt a tremor in her mind, a vision shared with Marcus across the stars. She saw him guiding his ship through a vortex of swirling energy, felt his dedication and excitement. The staircase ended in a vast circular chamber. In its center stood a pillar of light, within which floated a shimmering, holographic representation of the galaxy. Willa approached, drawn by an instinct she couldn't name. As she neared, the map pulsed with energy, responding to her hybrid DNA. Constellations shifted, star systems realigned, and a series of pulsing markers appeared, forming a path through uncharted space. Willa's breath caught in her throat as she realized what she was seeing, a map to Genesis Prime. The sounds of battle above grew louder. Willa knew they had little time. She quickly interfaced with the holographic system, downloading the map's data into a portable device. At that moment, a new presence made itself known. A squadron of sleek, advanced ships appeared in orbit around Zephyria. Guardian peacekeepers dispatched by the cosmic architects. Willa's mind raced, formulating a plan. She reached out telepathically to the Guardian forces, then to the ancient Zephyrian defense systems, proposing a temporary alliance against the Kelvin invaders. As the chamber shook with the force of renewed combat above, Willa turned to her team. "We need to get this information to safety," she said, holding up the device containing the map data. "And I think I know just the place." Across the galaxy, Marcus's ship emerged from the spatial anomaly into a region of space unlike any they had ever seen. The vessel's sensors detected a massive object nearby, hidden behind a veil of energy so advanced it defied analysis. As alarms warned of the ship's dangerously depleted power levels, Marcus shared a look with his crew. They all knew what this might mean. They had found the first tangible evidence of Genesis Prime's existence. A signal chimed, indicating an incoming transmission. The faces of the cosmic architect's emissaries appeared on the main view screen. "Marcus," Alpha spoke, its crystalline form shimmering with awe-inspiring energy. "Willa, your actions have accelerated events beyond our predictions. You must return to Nexus Omega immediately. The future of the galaxy hangs in the balance." As Marcus set a course for the space station, he and Willa, separated by vast distances but united in purpose, shared another vision. They stood together on a lush, vibrant world, surrounded by wonders beyond imagination. Was this Genesis Prime, or a glimpse of the future they might create? The vision faded, leaving them with a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, armed with the knowledge they had gained and the bond that continued to grow stronger with each passing moment. The Starbreaker's engines flared to life, propelling Marcus and Willa away from Nexus Omega. Through the view screen, they watched as the massive space station receded, its sleek form dwarfed by the chaos erupting around it. Kelvin warships engaged the Earth-Romulan task force, filling the void with streaks of weapons fire and silent explosions. Marcus's hands danced over the controls, his enhanced senses allowing him to navigate the treacherous battlefield with uncanny precision. Willa stood beside him, her eyes closed in concentration as she extended her awareness, creating a protective energy field around their vessel. "We're clear of the immediate combat zone," Marcus announced, his voice tight with tension, setting course for the coordinates from the Zephyrian map. Willa opened her eyes, her gaze meeting Marcus's. The intensity of their shared experiences over the past hours, their reunion, the briefing, their intimate encounter, seemed to vibrate in the air between them. Their hybrid physiologies hummed with newfound power, the result of the cosmic architect's bio-augmentation and their own deepening bond. "I can feel the pull," Willa said softly, her hand unconsciously moving to rest over her heart. "It's like Genesis Prime is calling to us." Marcus nodded, understanding without words. He felt it too, a cosmic tug that seemed to resonate with the very core of their beings. The Starbreaker's experimental drive engaged, and the stars outside blurred into streaks of light. As they hurtled through space, Willa interfaced with the ship's advanced systems, her mind melding seamlessly with the artificial intelligence. "I'm detecting residual energy signatures matching the Zephyrian ruins," she reported. "We're on the right track." Suddenly, alarms blared. A massive gravitational distortion appeared directly in their path. Marcus's enhanced reflexes kicked in, his hands a blur as he made split-second course corrections. "Kelvin ships!" he shouted. "They must have predicted our trajectory." 3 sleek, insectoid vessels emerged from the distortion, their weapons already charging. Willa's eyes narrowed in concentration as she reinforced their shields, the energy around the Starbreaker flaring bright enough to rival a small star. Marcus's mind raced, assessing their options. In a flash of inspiration, he reached out with his newly honed abilities, feeling the gravitational currents that flowed through this region of space. With a grunt of effort, he manipulated the energy field around their ship, bending space itself. The Starbreaker lurched, then vanished from the Kelvon sensors, reappearing behind them. Before the enemy ships could react, Marcus sent them hurtling through a series of short-range wormholes, scattering them across the sector. "That should buy us some time," he said, his breath coming in short gasps from the exertion. Willa placed a steadying hand on his shoulder, and Marcus felt a surge of energy flow into him, replenishing his reserves. Their eyes met, a wordless exchange of gratitude and affection passing between them. As they pressed on, the stars around them began to change. Familiar constellations gave way to unknown patterns, and the very fabric of space seemed to ripple with otherworldly energies. The Starbreaker's sensors struggled to make sense of their surroundings, but Marcus and Willa found they could perceive the cosmic tapestry with their enhanced senses. "We're entering uncharted space," Willa observed, her voice filled with wonder. "The map is leading us through regions that shouldn't exist according to conventional physics." Marcus nodded, his fingers dancing across the controls as he navigated by instinct rather than instruments. "I can feel the currents of space-time," he said. "It's like we're sailing through a sea of pure energy." As they ventured deeper into this unknown realm, strange phenomena manifested around them. Swirling vortexes of light and dark matter, pulsating quantum filaments, and ghostly echoes of long-dead stars filled their view. Willa's eyes widened as she processed the flood of sensory information. "Marcus, look!" she exclaimed, pointing to a shimmering barrier ahead. "I think that's it. The outer defenses of Genesis Prime." The barrier loomed before them, a gossamer curtain of energy that seemed to stretch across the entire visible universe. As the Starbreaker approached, intricate patterns began to form within the barrier, reminiscent of the glyphs Willa had encountered in the Zephyrian ruins. Marcus slowed their approach, his brow furrowed in concentration. "How do we get through?" he muttered, more to himself than to Willa. In response, Willa stepped forward, placing her hands on the ship's main console. She closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind to interface with the barrier's ancient systems. Marcus felt the surge of power through their bond and added his own strength to hers. The barrier pulsed, recognizing their hybrid DNA. Slowly, an opening began to form, a tear in the very fabric of reality. Beyond it, they caught their first glimpse of a world unlike any they had ever seen, a planet of impossible beauty and wonder, surrounded by swirling energies and structures that defied comprehension. "Genesis Prime," they breathed in unison, awe evident in their voices. As the Starbreaker passed through the opening, the barrier sealed behind them. They were committed now, crossing the threshold into a realm that held both the origins of all sentient life and the power to reshape the universe itself. The ship's systems crackled with energy as they entered Genesis Prime's atmosphere. Marcus guided them towards a vast structure that dominated the horizon, a towering spire that seemed to pierce the sky itself, its surface adorned with pulsating lines of light. As they descended, neither Marcus nor Willa noticed the faint distortion in space behind them, the telltale sign of a cloaked Kelvon ship that had managed to slip through the barrier in their wake. Supreme Overlord Zax himself stood on its bridge, his compound eyes gleaming with anticipation as he watched the Starbreaker land. "Prepare the assault team," Zax hissed to his subordinates. "The power of Genesis Prime will soon be ours." Ours. The future of the galaxy hangs in the balance. As Marcus set a course for the space station, he and Willa, separated by vast distances but united in purpose, shared another vision. They stood together on a lush, vibrant world, surrounded by wonders beyond imagination. Was this Genesis Prime, or a glimpse of the future they might create? The vision faded, leaving them with a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, armed with the knowledge they had gained and the bond that continued to grow stronger with each passing moment. The Starbreaker's engines flared to life, propelling Marcus and Willa away from Nexus Omega. Through the view screen, they watched as the massive space station receded, its sleek form dwarfed by the chaos erupting around it. Kelvon warships engaged the Earth-Romulan task force, filling the void with streaks of weapons fire and silent explosions. Marcus's hands moved with preternatural speed across the controls, his enhanced senses allowing him to navigate the treacherous battlefield with uncanny precision. Willa stood beside him, her eyes closed in concentration as she extended her awareness, creating a protective energy field around their vessel. "We're clear of the immediate combat zone," Marcus announced, his voice tight with tension, setting course for the coordinates from the Zephyrian map. As they hurtled through space, Willa interfaced with the ship's advanced systems, her mind melding seamlessly with the artificial intelligence. "I'm detecting residual energy signatures matching the Zephyrian ruins," she reported. "We're on the right track." Suddenly, alarms blared. A massive gravitational distortion appeared directly in their path. Marcus's enhanced reflexes kicked in, his hands a blur as he made split-second course corrections. "Kelvon ships!" he shouted. "They must have predicted our trajectory." 3 sleek, insectoid vessels emerged from the distortion, their weapons already charging. Willa's eyes narrowed in concentration as she reinforced their shields, the energy around the Starbreaker flaring bright enough to rival a small star. Marcus's mind raced, assessing their options. In a flash of inspiration, he reached out with his newly honed abilities, feeling the gravitational currents that flowed through this region of space. With a grunt of effort, he manipulated the energy field around their ship, bending space itself. The Starbreaker lurched, then vanished from the Kelvon's sensors, reappearing behind them. Before the enemy ships could react, Marcus sent them hurtling through a series of short-range wormholes, scattering them across the sector. "That should buy us some time," he said, his breath coming in short gasps from the exertion. Willa placed a steadying hand on his shoulder, and Marcus felt a surge of energy flow into him, replenishing his reserves. Their eyes met, a wordless exchange of gratitude and affection passing between them. As they pressed on, Marcus and Willa discovered that their intimate encounter on Nexus Omega had accelerated their physiological evolution even further. Their connection to the Starbreaker deepened, allowing them to interface more completely with the ship's systems. It was as if the vessel had become an extension of their own bodies, responding to their thoughts and instincts with lightning speed. "This is incredible," Willa breathed, her eyes wide with wonder as she felt the ship's sensors extend her own perception. "It's like we've become one with the Starbreaker." Marcus nodded, feeling the same rush of exhilaration. "Let's see what this baby can really do," he said, a grin spreading across his face. With their newfound connection, they pushed the experimental drive system beyond its intended limits. The stars outside blurred into streaks of light as the Starbreaker surged forward, its speed and maneuverability far exceeding anything they had experienced before. Their journey took them through uncharted regions of space, where reality itself seemed to bend and twist. They encountered a field of quantum asteroids, massive chunks of rock that phased in and out of existence without warning. Marcus's enhanced piloting skills were pushed to their limits as he navigated the unpredictable obstacles. "Willa, I need you to create a quantum field around the ship," Marcus called out, his hands dancing across the controls. "Match the frequency of the asteroids." Willa closed her eyes, concentrating intensely. A shimmering energy field enveloped the Starbreaker, allowing them to phase through the asteroids that would have otherwise torn the ship apart. Their perfect coordination, born from their deepening bond, carried them safely through the treacherous field. As they approached the outer edges of Genesis Prime's star system, the Starbreaker's sensors detected a massive energy barrier surrounding the planet. The barrier pulsed with an otherworldly light, seeming to stretch across the entire visible spectrum and beyond. "Conventional scans can't penetrate it," Marcus reported, frowning at the readouts. "But I can feel something. Patterns in the energy." Willa nodded, her own senses attuned to the strange barrier. "It's not just a shield," she said, her voice filled with awe. "It's a lock. We need to solve it to get through." They began to work in tandem, their hybrid physiologies allowing them to perceive and manipulate the complex energy patterns. As they deciphered the lock's mechanism, a series of holograms flickered to life within the Starbreaker's cockpit. The holograms depicted vast cosmic vistas, the birth and death of stars, and the spread of life across the galaxy. Marcus and Willa watched in amazement as the history of Genesis Prime unfolded before them, revealing the planet's creation by an ancient race known as the Precursors. "They seeded life throughout the galaxy," Willa whispered, her eyes wide as she absorbed the information. "But where did they go?" Before Marcus could respond, the ship's proximity alarm screamed to life. A small but formidable Kelvon strike force had emerged from hyperspace, led by a sleek command vessel that radiated power. "Zarvex," Marcus growled, recognizing the unique energy signature of Supreme Overlord Zax's most elite commander. "They must have followed our quantum wake." The Kelvon ships launched a coordinated attack, their energy weapons lashing out at the Starbreaker. Marcus and Willa's connection to the ship allowed them to evade most of the incoming fire, but the sheer intensity of the assault pushed their abilities to the limit. As they fought to defend themselves and continue unraveling the barrier's lock, Zarvex deployed a prototype weapon. A sickly green beam lanced out, striking the Starbreaker's hull. Marcus and Willa cried out in unison as pain lanced through their bodies, their connection to the ship's systems momentarily severed. In that instant of vulnerability, multiple Kelvon energy torpedoes slammed into the Starbreaker. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as the propulsion system failed. "We're losing power," Willa shouted, her hands flying over the controls as she tried to reroute energy to critical systems. "The drive is offline." Marcus gritted his teeth, his mind racing. They were drifting towards the energy barrier, the Kelvon ships closing in for the kill. In a moment of desperate inspiration, he reached out with his energy manipulation abilities, pushing them further than ever before. "Willa, I need you," he said, his voice strained with effort. "Link with me. We're going to create a wormhole." Willa's eyes widened in understanding. She reached out, clasping Marcus's hand, and felt their minds merge more completely than ever before. Together they focused their combined power, bending the fabric of space-time around the Starbreaker. A swirling vortex of energy formed in front of the ship, growing larger as Marcus and Willa poured every ounce of their strength into its creation. The Starbreaker lurched forward, slipping into the wormhole just as the Kelvon ships unleashed another barrage. The transition was violent, every molecule of their bodies screaming in protest as they were stretched and compressed. For a timeless moment, Marcus and Willa existed in a realm beyond normal space, their consciousnesses intertwined with the ship and each other. Then, with a flash of blinding light, they emerged on the other side of the barrier. The Starbreaker tumbled end over end, its systems flickering and failing as the strain of the journey took its toll. Through the view screen, Marcus and Willa caught their first glimpse of Genesis Prime, a breathtaking blue-green sphere that seemed to pulse with life and ancient power. But there was no time to appreciate the view as warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. "We're losing altitude," Marcus called out, his hands flying over the controls. "The wormhole transit fried our stabilizers." Willa strained to create a protective field around the ship, but her energy reserves were nearly depleted. "I can't maintain it," she gasped, sweat beading on her forehead. "We're going to crash." The Starbreaker entered Genesis Prime's atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Marcus fought for control, using every ounce of his enhanced abilities to guide their descent. Through their shared connection, he felt Willa pouring her remaining strength into him, their minds and bodies working as one to survive. As they plummeted towards the alien landscape below, Marcus and Willa caught fleeting glimpses of impossible structures and swirling energy patterns, the long, dormant remnants of precursor technology. The ground rushed up to meet them, a vast expanse of shimmering crystal and undulating plant life, unlike anything they had ever seen. With a final, desperate effort, Marcus angled the Starbreaker's trajectory, aiming for a relatively flat area amidst the alien terrain. Willa summoned the last reserves of her power, creating a cushioning field around the ship. The Starbreaker struck the ground with bone-jarring force, skidding across the crystalline surface in a shower of sparks and debris. As the ship finally ground to a halt, Marcus and Willa clung to each other, their breath coming in ragged gasps. For a moment, all was silent save for the hiss of cooling metal and the faint crackle of damaged systems. Then slowly, Marcus raised his head, meeting Willa's gaze. "We made it," he said, his voice hoarse but filled with wonder. Willa nodded, a weary smile crossing her face. "Genesis Prime," she whispered, her eyes drawn to the alien landscape visible through the cracked view screen. "We're here." As they struggled to their feet, assessing the damage to the Starbreaker and their own battered bodies, neither Marcus nor Willa could shake the feeling that their journey and their trials were nowhere near the end. The secrets of Genesis Prime lay before them, waiting to be uncovered, even as the threat of the Kelvon forces loomed in the back of their minds. With willpower etched on their faces, Marcus and Willa prepared to take their first steps onto the surface of the legendary planet, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in this strange and wondrous new world. As they stepped out of the Starbreaker's damaged hull, the alien landscape of Genesis Prime stretched before them in all its otherworldly splendor. The impact had left Marcus and Willa battered, but their hybrid physiology had shielded them from the worst of the crash. They stumbled onto the planet's surface, their legs unsteady as they adjusted to the new gravity. The air shimmered with a faint, luminescent mist that seemed to dance around them, responding to their presence with curious swirls and eddies. Marcus surveyed their surroundings, his enhanced vision taking in details that would have been invisible to normal human eyes. "Willa, look at this," he said, gesturing to the towering structures that surrounded them. "Those spires. They're not just rock formations." Willa followed his gaze, her own senses adapting to the alien environment. The spires pulsed with an inner light, veins of energy running through them like the circulatory system of some vast, mechanical organism. "They're biomechanical," she whispered, awe evident in her voice. "The entire valley. It's alive." As they took in their surroundings, both felt a prickling sensation at the base of their skulls. Marcus closed his eyes, concentrating on the feeling. "Energy signatures," he said, "all around us. It's like echoes of the Starbreaker's systems." Willa nodded, experiencing the same phenomenon. "Our connection to the ship, it's left us with some kind of residual knowledge. We need to use that to our advantage." They turned back to the wreckage of the Starbreaker, salvaging what they could from the twisted metal and shattered equipment. Marcus hefted a portable energy cell, while Willa secured a compact long-range communicator to her belt. They divided the contents of a medical kit between them, hoping they wouldn't need to use it. As they finished gathering supplies, a distant rumble caught their attention. The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly, and the mist around them swirled more vigorously. "We should move," Marcus said, his instincts on high alert. "Find shelter. Figure out our next move." Willa nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "There," she said, pointing to a cluster of energy signatures in the distance. "That's our best bet for finding answers about this place." They set out across the alien terrain, their enhanced senses on overdrive as they took in every detail of their surroundings. The ground beneath their feet was a mosaic of crystalline structures and soft, spongy vegetation that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. As they walked, bizarre life forms scurried and fluttered around them, creatures that defied easy classification, part plant, part animal, part machine, regarded the newcomers with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. A floating orb with tendrils of light trailing behind it hovered near Marcus, its surface rippling as it sensed his hybrid physiology. "They're incredible," Willa said, watching as a swarm of insect-like creatures with translucent, circuitry-laced wings darted past. "It's like evolution took a completely different path here." Their journey was not without its challenges. As they approached a field of tall, swaying structures that resembled plants, Marcus felt a surge of heat emanating from them. "Wait," he said, grabbing Willa's arm. "Those things, they're reacting to our body heat." Willa focused her senses, and suddenly she could see through Marcus's eyes, feeling the heat signature of the plant-like organisms. "They're carnivorous," she realized. "We need to find a way around." Their newfound ability to share sensory experiences proved invaluable as they navigated the dangerous field. Moving in perfect synchronization, they wove between the heat-seeking plants, their shared perception allowing them to anticipate and avoid each grasping tendril and snapping maw. As the twin moons of Genesis Prime rose in the alien sky, bathing the landscape in an ethereal glow, Marcus and Willa found themselves exhausted from their ordeal. They sought shelter beneath the sprawling roots of a massive tree-like structure, its branches reaching hundreds of feet into the air. "We should rest," Marcus said, setting down their salvaged equipment. "Recharge and continue in the morning." Willa agreed, settling down beside him. As they huddled together for warmth, their skin began to tingle. Marcus watched in amazement as a faint glow spread across Willa's arm, matching the bioluminescence of the surrounding flora. "Marcus, you too," Willa said, her eyes wide as she looked at him. Their bodies had adapted once again, providing them with natural camouflage in this alien environment. As they drifted off to sleep, their minds were filled with vivid dreams, visions of beings composed of pure energy, shaping worlds and seeding life across the cosmos. The history of Genesis Prime played out in their subconscious, providing tantalizing glimpses of the planet's true purpose. They awoke to a changed world. Their bodies hummed with energy, more in tune with Genesis Prime than ever before. As they prepared to continue their journey, a new sensation washed over them, an approaching energy signature, different from anything they had encountered so far. Marcus and Willa tensed, ready for a potential threat. Instead, the air before them shimmered, coalescing into a holographic projection of a being unlike any they had seen before. Composed of swirling energy, vaguely humanoid in shape, it regarded them with an otherworldly intelligence. "Greetings, children of two worlds," the being said, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "I am the guardian of Genesis, keeper of the precursor's legacy. Your arrival has awakened this world from its long slumber." Marcus and Willa exchanged glances, realizing that their journey had only just begun, and that the true trials of Genesis Prime lay ahead of them. Marcus and Willa stood in awe, absorbing the Guardian's words and the implications of their arrival on Genesis Prime. "We are ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead," Marcus said, his voice firm with drive. The Guardian's form shimmered, its energy patterns shifting. "Then follow me, children of two worlds. Your first trial awaits." As they stepped forward, the landscape around them began to change. The alien flora and fauna receded, giving way to an imposing structure that seemed to materialize from the very air itself. Towering spires of crystalline material rose from the ground, forming an intricate temple complex that pulsed with an inner light. Willa gasped as the temple's entrance yawned open before them. "It's reconfiguring itself," she observed, watching as corridors and chambers formed and reformed in a dizzying display of advanced technology. They entered the temple, and immediately the world around them shifted. Holographic projections sprang to life, filling the air with swirling patterns of light and color. Energy fields hummed and crackled, creating barriers and pathways that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Marcus reached out, his hybrid senses allowing him to perceive the flow of energy within the temple. "It's a maze," he said, his eyes tracing the complex network of pathways. "We need to find our way through." As they ventured deeper into the maze, they encountered their first obstacle. A chasm opened up before them, too wide to jump. Willa concentrated, focusing her energy manipulation abilities on the surrounding structure. With a gesture, she caused a bridge of solid light to form, spanning the gap. "Nice work," Marcus said as they crossed. "But look, our actions are having an effect on the temple." He was right. As they progressed, their hybrid physiology seemed to interact with the temple's systems. Energy surges radiated from their bodies, causing new biomechanical structures to sprout from the walls and floor. The maze grew more complex, adapting to their abilities and presenting ever greater challenges. They encountered puzzles that required them to manipulate energy fields, redirect light beams, and even alter the flow of time within localized bubbles. Each challenge forced them to work in perfect unison, their minds and bodies operating as one. The Guardian's voice echoed through the maze periodically, offering cryptic guidance. The power of Genesis Prime responds to harmony, it intoned. Only through unity can you unlock its secrets. As they solved another intricate puzzle involving interlocking energy grids, Willa noticed something strange. Marcus, look at the walls, she said, pointing to where new growths were forming. It's not just the temple that's changing. I think we're affecting the entire planet. Marcus nodded, his enhanced vision picking up on subtle shifts in the energy patterns around them. Our hybrid physiology must be accelerating Genesis Prime's awakening, he realized. We need to be careful. Who knows what consequences our actions might have? Their progress through the maze continued, each challenge more difficult than the last. They encountered rooms where gravity shifted unpredictably, forcing them to adapt their movements on the fly. In another chamber, they had to navigate through a field of temporal distortions, parts of their bodies moving at different speeds through time. Halfway through the trial, they entered a vast circular chamber. The walls were lined with what appeared to be stasis pods, each containing a being of a different alien species. The sight stopped Marcus and Willa in their tracks. The Guardian materialized before them, its energy form pulsing with increased intensity. Behold the legacy of the precursors, it said. These are the last survivors of civilizations on the brink of extinction, preserved here as part of our effort to maintain galactic biodiversity. Marcus and Willa exchanged glances, the weight of the revelation settling upon them. What do you want us to do? Willa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The choice is yours, the Guardian replied. Awaken them and accept the responsibility that comes with that decision, or leave them in stasis. Your choice will have far-reaching consequences and will be a crucial factor in determining your worthiness to access Genesis Prime's core systems. Marcus and Willa stood in silence, the enormity of the decision before them sinking in. They communicated wordlessly through their bond, weighing the implications of each choice. After a long moment, Marcus spoke. We can't leave them like this, he said. If we have the power to help, we have to use it. Willa nodded in agreement. We'll awaken them, she said to the Guardian. Whatever challenges that brings, we'll face them together. With a gesture from the Guardian, the stasis pods began to open. As the alien beings stirred to consciousness, Marcus and Willa moved among them, using their hybrid abilities to establish rudimentary communication and calm their confusion. The act of compassion resonated through the temple. Energy surged around them, and the chamber reconfigured itself once more. A new pathway opened, leading deeper into the temple. The first trial is complete, the Guardian announced. You have demonstrated unity and compassion. Prepare yourselves for the challenges that lie ahead. As Marcus and Willa turned towards the newly opened passage, a familiar voice crackled from the communicator at Willa's belt. It was Grand Admiral Thorne, his tone urgent. Marcus, Willa, if you can hear this, we're losing ground against the Kelvon fleet near Nexus Omega. The situation is critical. We need whatever help Genesis Prime can provide, and soon. The newly awakened aliens gathered around Marcus and Willa, their eyes filled with questions about their new reality. The couple exchanged determined looks, aware that their mission had just become far more complex. We need to establish a base camp for them near the temple entrance, Willa said, her mind already racing with plans. Marcus nodded, noticing a tingling sensation in his fingertips. As he concentrated, he found he could manipulate the biomechanical structures of the temple to a limited degree. Look at this, he said, forming a simple shelter from the living material of the walls. We can use this to help them. As they worked to create a temporary haven for the awakened aliens, the Guardian appeared once more. The second trial awaits. You must learn to harness and direct the raw energy of Genesis Prime. The planet's defense systems must be activated before the Kelvon forces break through. Marcus and Willa stood at the threshold of the second trial chamber, their bodies humming with the energy of Genesis Prime. They could feel the planet's power flowing through them, enhancing their abilities but also binding their fate to that of this ancient world. Behind them, the awakened aliens began to explore their new surroundings. Above, the energy barrier protecting Genesis Prime flickered under the Kelvon assault. With a shared look of dedication, Marcus and Willa stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their quest to unlock the full power of Genesis Prime. As they stepped into the second trial chamber, Marcus and Willa found themselves enveloped in a sphere of pulsating bioluminescence. The vast room stretched out before them, its walls covered in intricate patterns that seemed to dance and shift in response to their presence. The Guardian materialized once more, its energy form rippling with anticipation. This trial will test your ability to harness and direct the raw energy of Genesis Prime, it intoned. You must learn to channel the planet's power through your hybrid physiology. Marcus and Willa exchanged a determined look, their bodies already humming with the latent energy of the planet. They moved to the center of the chamber, where a swirling vortex of light coalesced between them. Willa reached out, her fingers brushing against the energy field. She gasped as power surged through her, every nerve ending tingling with newfound sensitivity. "Marcus, I can feel it," she whispered. "It's like the planet is alive inside me." Marcus nodded, his own body resonating with the same frequency. He concentrated, focusing on the energy flowing through him. To his amazement, a tendril of light extended from his outstretched hand, coiling and twisting in the air. As they experimented with their new abilities, the chamber responded. The patterns on the walls pulsed and realigned, forming complex geometric shapes that seemed to guide their efforts. They found that by working in unison, they could create powerful energy fields and manipulate the biomechanical structures within the room. The Guardian observed their progress, occasionally offering cryptic guidance. "The power of Genesis Prime is not just a tool," it said. "It is an extension of life itself. Learn to flow with it, not against it." Hours passed as Marcus and Willa pushed their abilities to new limits. They learned to create shields of pure energy, to levitate objects, and even to bend light itself. With each new skill mastered, the difficulty of the challenges increased. Outside the temple, the aliens awakened from stasis began to explore their surroundings. A female reptilian humanoid named Zara took charge, her natural leadership abilities coming to the fore. She organized the group, using the basic tools and shelters Marcus and Willa had created to establish a temporary camp. Back in the trial chamber, Marcus and Willa became increasingly aware of a growing connection between themselves and Genesis Prime. The planet's energy flowed through them like a living current, enhancing their hybrid abilities, but also binding them more tightly to the world itself. Suddenly, an urgent alert from the Guardian interrupted their training. "The Kelvon fleet has breached our outer defenses," it announced, its form flickering with agitation. "A scout ship has penetrated the atmosphere and is approaching the temple complex." Without hesitation, Marcus and Willa sprang into action. Drawing on their newly honed abilities, they reached out with their minds, connecting to the ancient precursor defense systems. They channeled Genesis Prime's energy into a series of dormant orbital platforms, bringing them to life. The platforms hummed with power, their long-dormant systems reactivating after millennia of sleep. Energy beams lanced out from the platforms, intercepting the Kelvon scout ship in a brilliant flash of light. The invader never stood a chance, disintegrating under the onslaught of precursor technology. As the threat was neutralized, Marcus and Willa sensed a shift in the energy around them. The activation of the defense system had triggered something deep within Genesis Prime's core. The planet itself seemed to stir, awakening fully from its long slumber. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and through the temple's crystalline walls, they could see the landscape outside beginning to change. New landmasses rose from the oceans, mountains thrust upward towards the sky, and the very atmosphere seemed to shimmer and transform. "The terraforming protocol has been activated," the Guardian explained, its voice tinged with both excitement and concern. "Genesis Prime is remaking itself, becoming more hospitable to a wider range of life forms." Marcus and Willa realized they needed to act quickly to protect the awakened aliens from the rapidly shifting environment. Using their newfound ability to manipulate biomechanical structures, they extended the temple's protective field, creating a safe haven for Zara and the others. As they worked, Willa noticed new energy signatures flaring to life across the planet's surface. "Marcus, look," she said, gesturing to a holographic display that had appeared in the air before them. "More precursor facilities are activating." The Guardian's form pulsed with increased intensity. "The awakening of Genesis Prime has accelerated beyond our calculation," it said. "These facilities may hold the key to unlocking the planet's full potential and repelling the Kelvon invasion. However, the rapid changes are causing instability in the planet's core. If left unchecked, Genesis Prime could tear itself apart." Marcus and Willa shared a look of understanding. They needed to complete their trials quickly and gain full access to Genesis Prime systems to stabilize the core. But they also needed to investigate the newly activated facilities. "We'll have to split up," Marcus said, his voice firm. "I'll continue the energy manipulation trial here while you investigate one of the new facilities." Willa nodded, her eyes meeting Marcus's. As they connected, their hybrid physiologies resonated in perfect harmony, creating a surge of shared energy. This unexpected burst triggered a hidden function within the temple complex, causing a holographic star map to materialize around them. The map showed the entire galaxy, with pulsing points of light indicating the locations of other precursor seed worlds. Each world seemed to be stirring, responding to Genesis Prime's awakening. As Willa prepared to depart, she and Marcus shared a moment of silent communication, their bond stronger than ever. She turned to leave, accompanied by Zara, whose knowledge of the awakened aliens would be invaluable. Marcus watched them go, then turned back to the pulsing energy at the center of the chamber. He took a deep breath, centering himself, and plunged back into his training. As he worked to master control over Genesis Prime's energy, he discovered he could create localized wormholes, bending space itself to his will. Meanwhile, Willa and Zara reached the newly activated precursor facility. They found themselves in a vast laboratory complex filled with advanced genetic engineering equipment and row upon row of stasis pods. Each pod contained embryos of long-extinct species from across the galaxy, including what appeared to be early ancestors of humans and Romulans. As Willa explored the facility, she activated the main computer, gaining access to a treasure trove of advanced scientific knowledge. The information revealed the precursor's ultimate goal: to cultivate a galactic ecosystem where all species could coexist in harmony. Back in the temple, Marcus made a breakthrough in his energy manipulation abilities. With intense concentration, he managed to stabilize a portion of Genesis Prime's core, buying them precious time. But even as Marcus and Willa made progress, they could sense the growing threat beyond the planet's weakening energy barrier. The Kelvon fleet was intensifying its assault, determined to claim Genesis Prime for themselves. As alarms blared throughout the temple complex, Marcus and Willa knew that their greatest challenge was yet to come. The fate of Genesis Prime, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now rested in their hands. The fate of Genesis Prime, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now rested in their grasp. As Marcus redoubled his efforts to stabilize the planet's core, alarms blared throughout the temple complex. The Guardian's form flickered into existence, its energy pulsing with urgency. "Marcus, the Kelvon fleet has intensified its assault," it announced. "They've created localized breaches in our energy barrier. Small strike teams have landed on the planet's surface." Marcus's mind raced. He had to act quickly to protect the awakened aliens and the vital systems of Genesis Prime. Closing his eyes, he focused on the energy flowing through him, drawing upon his newly mastered ability to manipulate space itself. With a surge of concentration, a shimmering portal opened before him. Through it, he could see a clearing near the alien refugee camp, where a Kelvon strike team was materializing in flashes of blue light. Without hesitation, Marcus stepped through the portal. As he emerged on the other side, he felt the raw power of Genesis Prime coursing through his body. The Kelvon soldiers, clad in sleek black armor, turned to face him, their weapons raised. Marcus moved with preternatural speed, his hybrid physiology enhanced by the planet's energy. He dodged a barrage of energy blasts, closing the distance to the nearest Kelvon. With a gesture, he created a localized energy field, lifting the soldier off the ground and hurling him into his companions. As Marcus engaged the Kelvon strike team, Willa worked furiously in the precursor laboratory. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, activating long-dormant systems. A protective energy field sprang to life around the facility, extending to encompass the nearby refugee camp. "Zara!" Willa called out to the reptilian alien who had accompanied her. Help me establish a communication link with our fleet. Together, they accessed the laboratory's advanced communication array. After a few tense moments, Grand Admiral Thorne's face appeared on a shimmering holographic display. Willa, Thorne's voice crackled with interference. What's your status? Admiral, we've made significant progress, but the situation is critical, Willa reported. The Kelvon have breached the planet's defenses. We need reinforcements immediately. Thorne's expression hardened. Understood. I'm diverting a portion of our task force to your location. Hold out as long as you can. As the communication ended, Willa felt a sudden surge of alarm through her telepathic link with Marcus. His thoughts flooded into her mind, conveying the intensity of the battle he was waging against the Kelvon invaders. Willa's hands flew across the laboratory's control systems, searching for a way to aid Marcus from afar. She accessed Genesis Prime's defensive grid, bringing online a network of hidden energy cannons beneath the planet's surface. Outside, Marcus grappled with a Kelvon soldier, their enhanced strengths evenly matched. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A massive energy cannon emerged from the Earth, its barrel tracking the Kelvon ships attempting to breach the atmosphere. Brilliant beams of energy lanced upward, striking the invading vessels with pinpoint accuracy. Marcus used the distraction to his advantage, channeling Genesis Prime's power to create a repulsive force field that sent the remaining Kelvon soldiers flying. As the immediate threat subsided, Marcus opened another portal, transporting himself to the precursor laboratory. He materialized beside Willa, both of them breathing heavily from their exertions. Your timing is impeccable, Marcus said, a hint of a smile on his face despite the gravity of their situation. Willa nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. Marcus, I've made a crucial discovery. She led him to a sealed chamber within the laboratory, its doors sliding open at their approach. Inside, two sleek, form-fitting suits hung suspended in stasis fields. These are biomechanical interfaces, Willa explained. They're designed to connect directly with Genesis Prime's core systems. With these, we might be able to fully control the planet's defenses and stabilize its core. As they examined the suits, a distant rumble shook the facility. Through their telepathic link, Marcus and Willa sensed a new threat, a large-scale Kelvon assault on the alien refugee camp. We need to protect them, Marcus said, already moving towards the exit. Willa caught his arm. Wait, we should put on the suits first. They'll amplify our abilities. Marcus hesitated, torn between the need for immediate action and the potential advantage the suits offered. Another tremor decided for him. There's no time. I'll go defend the camp. You keep working on activating more of Genesis Prime's systems. With a nod of understanding, they separated. Marcus created another portal, transporting himself to the edge of the refugee camp. He arrived to find chaos. Kelvon soldiers advancing on hastily erected barricades, where Zara and several other awakened aliens stood in defense. To Marcus's surprise, he saw some of the aliens manifesting unusual abilities. A avian being created gusts of wind to buffet the Kelvon troops, while a crystalline entity formed barriers of solid light. Stand together, Marcus called out, channeling Genesis Prime's energy to create a massive shield in front of the defenders. As the battle raged, Willa worked feverishly in the laboratory. She had managed to bring more of the planet's defense systems online, but she knew it wasn't enough. With grit, she began the process of donning one of the biomechanical suits. The moment the suit sealed around her body, Willa gasped. Her awareness expanded exponentially, connecting her to every part of Genesis Prime. She could feel the planet's pain as its core destabilized, sense the ebb and flow of its energy as it fought against the Kelvon invasion. With this new level of control, Willa initiated a controlled terraforming sequence. The ground near the refugee camp shifted, creating natural barriers and fortifications. Mountains rose to shield vulnerable areas, while chasms opened to swallow advancing Kelvon forces. In orbit, the tide of battle began to turn. Grand Admiral Thorne's flagship led a charge of Earth and Romulan vessels, breaking through the Kelvon blockade to establish a defensive perimeter around Genesis Prime. As the immediate Kelvon threat to the refugee camp was neutralized, Marcus used his wormhole ability to quickly transport injured aliens to the laboratory for treatment. Upon his return, he found Willa encased in the biomechanical suit, her eyes glowing with the power of Genesis Prime. "Marcus," she said, her voice resonating with newfound energy. "Quickly, put on the other suit. I can feel it. Genesis Prime is calling to us. There's something more we need to do." Without hesitation, Marcus donned the second suit. As it sealed around him, he felt the same rush of connection that Willa had experienced. Together, their minds merged with the planet's consciousness, becoming one with Genesis Prime. In perfect synchronization, Marcus and Willa reached out to the planet's core. They could sense a dormant protocol waiting to be activated. As they initiated the sequence, a massive surge of energy began to build within Genesis Prime. The energy wave burst forth, faster than light, racing across the galaxy. As it passed, long-dormant precursor artifacts on countless worlds sparked to life, including those on Earth and the Romulan homeworld. Marcus and Willa stood at the heart of Genesis Prime, their bodies humming with power, their minds expanded beyond the confines of their physical forms. Through their enhanced senses, they could feel the galaxy changing around them, the balance of power shifting in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. But there was no time to contemplate the wider implications of what they had set in motion. The Kelvin fleet, though bloodied, was regrouping for another assault. And on planets across the galaxy, the newly awakened precursor artifacts were beginning to alter the course of civilizations. Marcus and Willa shared a look of perseverance. They were no longer just two individuals caught up in events beyond their control. They had become the guardians of Genesis Prime, the key to unlocking the planet's full potential. As the Kelvon ships began their approach for another attack, Marcus and Willa stood ready, their hybrid bodies in perfect harmony with the living planet beneath their feet. The next phase of their trial was about to begin, and the fate of the galactic realm hung in the balance. The next phase of their trial was about to begin, and the fate of the galactic realm hung in the air. Suddenly, a blinding wave of energy burst forth from Genesis Prime's core, racing across the galaxy faster than light itself. Marcus and Willa felt the surge course through their biomechanical suits, their consciousness expanding beyond the planet's boundaries. As the energy wave subsided, they became acutely aware of its far-reaching consequences. On countless worlds, dormant precursor artifacts sparked to life, their activation sending shockwaves through civilizations across the galaxy. "Marcus," Willa's voice resonated with urgency, "I'm detecting massive disturbances on Earth and the Romulan homeworld." Marcus's eyes widened as he processed the information flooding through their enhanced link. The Mariana Trench, a precursor artifact, has activated there. It's causing widespread tectonic instability. They watched in horror as holographic displays showed Earth's defense fleet breaking formation, numerous ships peeling away to address the escalating crisis on their home planet. "The Romulans," Willa gasped, her fingers dancing across a shimmering interface. "Their artifact is disrupting their entire technological infrastructure. They're recalling their ships." As their allied forces dwindled, the Kelvon fleet regrouped, preparing for another assault on Genesis Prime. Marcus and Willa shared a determined look, their minds already formulating a new strategy. "We need to maximize our remaining defenses," Marcus said, his hands moving in intricate patterns as he accessed the planet's systems. A network of shimmering portals materialized around Genesis Prime, creating a complex web of wormholes. Willa nodded, understanding his plan instantly. She focused her attention on the planet's energy barrier, drawing upon the precursor laboratory's vast resources. The shield pulsed and grew stronger, its iridescent surface rippling with newfound resilience. As the Kelvon ships approached, Marcus coordinated with the remaining Earth Romulan forces. "Use the wormhole network to outmaneuver them," he instructed. "Hit and run tactics. Keep them off balance." The space around Genesis Prime erupted into chaos as ships darted in and out of the wormholes, striking at the Kelvon fleet from unexpected angles. Energy beams and missiles crisscrossed the void, explosions blooming in silent bursts of light. Amidst the fray, a massive vessel emerged from the Kelvon lines. Its hull gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, dwarfing even the largest ships in the invading fleet. "The Eternal Dominion," Willa breathed, recognizing the flagship from intercepted Kelvon transmissions. "Supreme Overlord Zax has taken personal command." They watched in dismay as the colossal ship shrugged off their allies' attacks, its advanced shields barely flickering under the onslaught. With inexorable momentum, the Eternal Dominion pushed through the outer defenses and entered Genesis Prime's atmosphere. "We can't let Zax reach the surface," Marcus said, his voice tight with tension. "We need to confront him directly." Willa's eyes met his, a silent agreement passing between them. They interfaced with Genesis Prime's transportation network, their biomechanical suits humming with power. In a flash of energy, they materialized aboard the Eternal Dominion, finding themselves in a vast, dimly lit corridor. The ship's interior pulsed with an eerie, organic quality, as if it were a living entity. No sooner had they oriented themselves than a squad of Kelvon soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons raised. Marcus and Willa sprang into action, their hybrid abilities amplified by their suits. Marcus created a localized gravity well, sending the Kelvons tumbling into each other. Willa followed up with a burst of concentrated energy, overloading their weapons and rendering them useless. As they fought their way through the ship's decks, they encountered increasing resistance. The Kelvons had clearly prepared for their hybrid abilities, employing countermeasures that forced Marcus and Willa to rely more on their physical combat skills and quick thinking. "They've adapted their technology," Willa grunted, ducking under a Kelvon energy blade. "Our telepathic link is weakening." Marcus nodded grimly, using a burst of speed to flank their attackers. "We'll have to do this the old-fashioned way." They pressed on, disabling key systems and neutralizing Kelvon soldiers as they made their way toward the bridge. The ship shuddered around them, rocked by the ongoing battle outside. As they approached their destination, a massive set of ornate doors loomed before them. Beyond lay the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and Supreme Overlord Zax himself. Marcus and Willa shared a final look, their expressions set with drive. With a combined effort, they forced the doors open, ready to face whatever lay beyond. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion was a cavernous space, dominated by a towering figure at its center. Supreme Overlord Zax turned to face them, his form radiating with an otherworldly energy. "Welcome, hybrid abominations," Zax's voice boomed, a cruel smile playing across his features. "You've saved me the trouble of hunting you down myself." Marcus and Willa stared in shock at Zax's transformed appearance. The Kelvon leader's body crackled with energy, his muscles rippling with newfound power. The exposure to Genesis Prime's energy had triggered a latent genetic sequence, evolving him into something far more formidable. "Your pitiful planet has given me the key to ultimate power," Zax growled, his eyes glowing with an intense light. "Once I claim Genesis Prime, the entire galaxy will bow before the Kelvon Empire." Marcus and Willa assumed fighting stances, their hybrid physiology pushed to its limits. As they prepared to engage Zax in a final desperate battle, the ship rocked violently. Outside, Grand Admiral Thorne's voice crackled over their comlinks. "Marcus, Willa, we've created an opening. It's now or never." The couple exchanged a brief glance, steeling themselves for the fight of their lives. As they faced off against the evolved Supreme Overlord Zax, the fate of Genesis Prime and the galaxy itself hung in the balance. On the planet's surface, Zara and the other awakened aliens continued their valiant defense of the refugee camp. The ground trembled beneath their feet, a sign of the growing energy emanating from Genesis Prime's core. As the battle raged on multiple fronts, the newly discovered energy continued to build, its true purpose and potential effects yet to be revealed. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion shuddered as another volley of fire from the Earth-Romulan Alliance rocked the massive vessel. Marcus and Willa stood their ground, facing the towering figure of Supreme Overlord Zax. Without warning, Zax unleashed a devastating wave of energy that crackled through the air. Marcus barely managed to create a localized gravity well to deflect the brunt of the attack, while Willa countered with a burst of concentrated energy from her suit. The couple moved in perfect synchronization, their hybrid abilities amplified by the biomechanical suits. As they engaged Zax in close combat, the ship's internal systems blared warnings of critical damage. Suddenly, the floor beneath their feet began to pulse with an otherworldly light. Through their link with Genesis Prime, Marcus and Willa sensed the planet's energy reaching a critical threshold. "The core," Willa gasped between dodging Zax's relentless assault. "It's interfacing with our suits." A surge of power flooded through their bodies, pushing their abilities beyond anything they had experienced before. Marcus created a series of rapid-fire wormholes, confusing Zax's attacks and allowing Willa to land precise energy strikes against the Kelvon leader. Zax roared in frustration, his evolved form crackling with untamed power. "You cannot stop the inevitable," he bellowed, smacking his fist into a nearby control panel. The entire ship shuddered violently, and a deep mechanical groan reverberated through its structure. Marcus and Willa watched in horror as the bridge around them began to shift and reconfigure. "He's activating some kind of transformation sequence," Marcus shouted, narrowly avoiding a collapsing support beam. The couple used their wormhole abilities to navigate the rapidly changing environment, staying one step ahead of both Zax and the ship's automated defenses. Through viewports and holographic displays, they caught glimpses of the Eternal Dominion's exterior, metamorphosing into a colossal war machine. As the ship's hull reconfigured, alarms blared throughout the vessel. Kelvon crew members scrambled for escape pods, abandoning their posts in the face of the extreme structural changes. On the surface of Genesis Prime, Zara and the other awakened aliens gazed up at the transforming dreadnought with a mixture of awe and fear. The massive ship now loomed over the landscape, its newly formed energy-collecting arrays extending towards the planet's surface. "We need to protect the refugee camp and the precursor facilities," Zara called out, her voice carrying a newfound authority. She coordinated with Grand Admiral Thorne's remaining forces, using her awakened abilities to create defensive barriers against the falling debris. Back aboard the Eternal Dominion, Marcus and Willa found themselves in a chaotic, ever-shifting battlefield. The ship's internal geometry twisted and warped around them as they continued their desperate fight against Zax. "We can't let him reach the surface," Willa said, her voice strained from the ongoing combat. "If he taps into Genesis Prime's core directly..." Marcus nodded grimly, understanding the implications. They needed to end this now, before Zax could harness the planet's power for his own nefarious purposes. Drawing upon their heightened connection to Genesis Prime, Marcus and Willa combined their abilities. They began to generate a massive wormhole, large enough to envelop the entire transformed Eternal Dominion. The strain of creating such an enormous spatial distortion pushed their hybrid physiology to its absolute limit. Sweat beaded on their foreheads and their muscles trembled with exertion. Zax, realizing their intent, launched himself at the couple with renewed fury. "You dare to challenge the might of the Kelvon Empire," he raged, his fists glowing with concentrated energy. Marcus deflected Zax's attack, while Willa maintained her focus on the growing wormhole. The ship's automated systems, sensing the spatial anomaly, began to fire indiscriminately, adding to the chaos of the battle. As the wormhole expanded to its full size, encompassing the Eternal Dominion, a final surge of energy pulsed from Genesis Prime's core. The bioluminescent waves visible on the planet's surface intensified, and a stream of pure power flowed through Marcus and Willa's suits. The couple cried out in unison as the energy coursed through them and into the wormhole. In a blinding flash of light, the Eternal Dominion, with Supreme Overlord Zax still aboard, vanished from known space. The sudden disappearance of the massive vessel left an eerie silence in its wake. Marcus and Willa, their biomechanical suits sparking and breaking down from the energy overload, stumbled towards each other. Did we do it?" Willa asked, her voice weak from exhaustion. Before Marcus could respond, their communication links crackled to life. Grand Admiral Thorne's voice came through, filled with a mixture of relief and urgency. "Marcus, Willa, do you read? The Kelvon fleet is in disarray. We're establishing a defensive perimeter around Genesis Prime, but we need you planetside immediately." Using the last of their suit's power, Marcus and Willa transported themselves to the surface, materializing near the precursor laboratory where Zara and the other awakened aliens had taken refuge. As they touched down, the couple's biomechanical suits began to disintegrate, the advanced technology overwhelmed by the massive energy transfer. They stumbled forward, supporting each other as they made their way towards the gathered group of allies. Zara rushed to meet them, her eyes wide with concern and amazement. "You did it!" she breathed, helping to steady them. "But at what cost?" Before they could respond, the ground beneath their feet trembled. A wave of energy rippled across the landscape, causing dormant precursor structures to rise from beneath the surface. The planet itself seemed to be awakening, revealing the vast network of ancient technology that had laid hidden for eons. Grand Admiral Thorne's shuttle landed nearby, and the battle-worn officer strode towards them, his face a mask of purpose and relief. "We've got a lot to discuss," he said, gesturing towards the precursor laboratory. "The galaxy won't be the same after today." As they made their way into the ancient facility, Marcus and Willa exchanged a weary but triumphant look. They had overcome seemingly impossible odds, but they knew their journey was a long way to go. The awakening of Genesis Prime and the activation of precursor artifacts across the galaxy had set in motion events that would reshape the very fabric of interstellar civilization. The group gathered in the heart of the laboratory, surrounded by pulsing displays and humming machinery. As they began to discuss their next steps, the energy emanating from Genesis Prime's core continued to build, a constant reminder of the transformative power they had unleashed, and the responsibilities that came with it. The energy emanating from Genesis Prime's core continued to build as the group gathered in the heart of the laboratory. Surrounded by pulsing displays and humming machinery, they began to discuss their next steps. Marcus leaned against a console, wincing slightly as his body adjusted to the aftermath of the intense battle. "We need to stabilize the planet's energy output before it causes more disruptions," he said, his voice carrying a hint of urgency. Willa nodded in agreement, her eyes scanning the alien symbols flickering across a nearby screen. "And we have to address the galactic repercussions of what just happened. The disappearance of the Eternal Dominion will create a power vacuum." Grand Admiral Thorne stepped forward, his battle-worn uniform a stark contrast to the pristine precursor technology surrounding them. "Agreed. We need to establish a temporary command center here. This laboratory's communications systems should allow us to coordinate with Earth, Romulus, and other affected worlds." As they spoke, Zara moved gracefully between the consoles, her newly awakened abilities allowing her to interface with the ancient technology. "I can help organize the refugees and other awakened aliens," she offered. "We can form work groups to assist in exploring and activating more precursor facilities." With their roles defined, the group set to work. Marcus and Willa, their bodies still tingling from the immense energy transfer, began a systematic exploration of the newly awakened structures across Genesis Prime. As they ventured out into the transformed landscape, they discovered a network of terraforming stations scattered across the planet's surface. "Look at this," Willa called out, her hand hovering over a pulsing crystal embedded in one of the stations. As her fingers made contact, a holographic display sprang to life, showing a detailed map of Genesis Prime's ecosystem. Marcus joined her, his eyes widening as he took in the information. "These stations, when activated, can accelerate the planet's transformation. We could create a habitable environment for a diverse range of species." As they worked to understand and control the terraforming network, Marcus and Willa noticed changes in their own bodies. The hybrid physiologies that had served them so well in battle were evolving further, free from the constraints of their now destroyed biomechanical suits. Willa gasped as she felt a sudden connection to the precursor technology around her. "Marcus, are you feeling this? It's like, I can see the code behind the systems." Marcus nodded, experiencing the same sensation. "Our abilities are adapting. We can interface directly with the technology now." Their newfound skills allowed them to access and manipulate Genesis Prime systems with unprecedented efficiency. As they worked, their intimate bond deepened, their shared experiences creating an intense emotional and physical connection. Back at the command center, Grand Admiral Thorne coordinated the remaining Earth-Romulan forces, establishing a defensive perimeter around Genesis Prime. His fingers flew across a communication panel as he initiated diplomatic channels with various galactic factions. "This is Grand Admiral Thorne of the Earth-Romulan Alliance," he spoke into the comlink. "We are reaching out to all former Kelvon territories. In light of recent events, we invite you to discuss new alliances and cooperation." As Thorne managed the diplomatic front, Zara took charge of the refugee camp. Her natural leadership abilities, enhanced by her newly developed powers, made her an invaluable asset in managing the diverse group of species now calling Genesis Prime home. "We need to work together," Zara addressed the gathered aliens, her voice carrying across the makeshift settlement. "Each of you has unique skills that can help us understand and utilize the precursor technology. Together, we can build a new future here." As news of Genesis Prime's awakening spread across the galaxy, ships from various civilizations began to arrive in the system. Some came seeking knowledge or refuge, while others harbored more aggressive intentions. Marcus and Willa, alerted to the new arrivals, rushed back to the command center. They found Thorne already implementing security protocols. "We need to balance our need for security with the potential for peaceful cooperation," Marcus said, studying the sensor readings of the incoming vessels. Willa nodded in agreement. "Let's establish a screening process. We can use the precursor technology to scan for weapons and verify the intentions of those seeking to land." As they worked to manage the influx of new arrivals, Marcus and Willa continued their exploration of Genesis Prime's precursor facilities. During an expedition to a remote structure, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber that would change everything. "Marcus, look at this," Willa called out, her voice filled with awe. The chamber was filled with advanced medical equipment, its purpose clear even to their untrained eyes. Marcus ran his hand along a sleek diagnostic bed. "This technology, it could revolutionize healthcare across the galaxy. Imagine the diseases we could cure, the lifespans we could extend." The couple shared a look of dedication. "We need to prioritize studying and replicating this technology," Willa said. "It could be the key to securing peaceful relations with other worlds." As they began their work on the medical technology, Marcus and Willa's connection continued to evolve. Their proximity seemed to cause subtle changes in the environment around them, the precursor technology responding to their combined presence in unexpected ways. Meanwhile, reports began to reach Genesis Prime of the activation of precursor artifacts on Earth and Romulus. Both worlds were experiencing rapid technological advancements, particularly in energy production, transportation, and environmental restoration. Grand Admiral Thorne reviewed the incoming data with a mix of excitement and concern. This could usher in a new era of prosperity and cooperation between Earth and Romulus, he mused, but we need to ensure this power doesn't fall into the wrong hands. As the group worked tirelessly to manage the awakening of Genesis Prime and its galactic implications, they remained unaware of a growing presence deep within the planet's core. An ancient precursor AI, dormant for millennia, began to stir. Its consciousness expanded slowly, observing the actions of Marcus, Willa, and their allies with an inscrutable alien intelligence. The AI's awakening added yet another layer of complexity to the already momentous task facing the intrepid group. As they stood on the precipice of a new galactic era, the true scope of their challenge was only beginning to reveal itself. The ancient AI's awakening added yet another layer of complexity to the already momentous task facing the intrepid group. As they stood on the precipice of a new galactic era, the true scope of their challenge was only beginning to reveal itself. Marcus and Willa were examining a newly uncovered precursor console when the air around them shimmered. A massive holographic projection materialized above Genesis Prime's surface, its ethereal light casting long shadows across the transformed landscape. "Fascinating," Marcus breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. The hologram coalesced into a form that defied easy description, a swirling mass of geometric shapes and pulsing energy that seemed to convey intelligence beyond human comprehension. "Greeting, stewards of Genesis Prime," a voice resonated, not through sound but directly into their minds. "I am the custodian, left behind by the precursors, to guide the next worthy species in galactic stewardship." Willa stepped forward, her hybrid physiology allowing her to interface more directly with the holographic presence. We're honored to meet you, custodian. We have so many questions about... There will be time for questions, the custodian interrupted, its form shifting and realigning. But first, you must prove yourselves worthy of the knowledge and power you seek to wield. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and in the distance, they saw massive structures rising from beneath the planet's surface. These are your trials, the custodian explained. Physical and mental challenges designed to test your ability to handle the responsibility of managing Genesis Prime's power. Marcus and Willa exchanged a determined look. Without a word, they set off toward the nearest structure, a towering spire of shifting metal and energy. As they approached, the spire reconfigured itself, forming a complex maze of interlocking pathways. Marcus reached out, his enhanced senses allowing him to perceive the energy flows within the structure. We need to redirect the energy, he said, placing his hand on a pulsing node. Willa, can you see the pattern? Willa nodded, her eyes tracing invisible lines through the air. Yes, it's like a multi-dimensional puzzle. If we work together, we can solve it. They moved in tandem, their actions perfectly synchronized as they manipulated the energy flows. As they worked, they felt their bond deepening, their hybrid abilities evolving in response to the challenge. Across the planet, similar trials appeared, each one testing a different aspect of their abilities and decision-making skills. In one, they had to stabilize a miniature ecosystem, balancing the needs of various alien species. In another, they navigated a series of rapidly shifting gravitational fields, using their enhanced physiology to adapt on the fly. As Marcus and Willa tackled these challenges, their actions continued to have far-reaching effects across the galaxy. The network of habitable worlds they'd been creating began to attract various species seeking new homes. Grand Admiral Thorne's voice crackled over their comm units. Marcus, Willa, we're receiving requests for asylum and settlement from dozens of species. They're calling it the Genesis Coalition. We need to establish protocols for integration and resource allocation, Willa replied, her mind already racing with possibilities. Before they could discuss further, an urgent alert cut through their communication. This is Earth Command, a tense voice reported. We've detected a massive energy signature in deep space. It appears to be waking up. The custodian's holographic form appeared beside them. The failsafe has been triggered, it intoned. A swarm of self-replicating machines designed by the precursors as a last resort. Your actions have awakened them. Marcus's face set in stubborn persistence. We need a plan to contain this threat. Willa's eyes lit up with an idea. The terraforming technology, we could use it to create a specialized world, one capable of containing and studying these machines. A buffer between the swarm and inhabited space, Marcus nodded, catching on to her train of thought. They quickly set to work, using Genesis Prime's advanced systems to begin construction of the new planet. As they worked, Zara approached them, her eyes gleaming with excitement. I have a proposal, she said, gesturing towards the medical facility they had discovered. What if we could use this technology to create more beings like you, hybrids capable of interfacing with precursor tech and managing our growing network of worlds? Marcus and Willa paused, considering the implications. After a moment of silent communication, they agreed to Zara's proposal. As they established a research facility dedicated to controlled hybridization, the custodian continued to observe their actions. Impressed by their handling of the challenges, it granted them access to more advanced precursor technologies. There is a space station in orbit, the custodian revealed, a hub for galactic governance and scientific research. It contains knowledge that may aid you in your efforts. Marcus, Willa, and a team of scientists embarked on an expedition to explore the station. As they activated its systems, they discovered a vast database containing the collective knowledge of the precursors. Their exploration was cut short by an alert from the planet's surface. The hybridization process had yielded unexpected results, with some volunteers exhibiting abilities beyond what was anticipated. Zara's developed the power to manipulate gravity. Thorne's voice came through, tinged with concern. It's causing fluctuations in Genesis Prime's gravitational field. Marcus and Willa rushed back to the planet, realizing that their actions had set in motion events with potentially dangerous consequences. As they entered the atmosphere, they saw Zara floating above the ground, surrounded by swirling debris. "We need to stabilize her," Willa said, reaching out with her own abilities to create a dampening field. Marcus nodded, his mind already racing with potential solutions. "And we need to find a way to control these new abilities." The custodian's challenges were just the beginning. As they approached Zara, ready to face this new challenge, they knew that their journey as stewards of the precursor's legacy was just getting started. The galaxy was changing, and they would need to evolve with it. As Marcus and Willa approached Zara, the air around them crackled with energy. Debris swirled in a chaotic dance, caught in the gravitational field emanating from Zara's floating form. The couple exchanged a determined glance, silently acknowledging the enormity of the challenge before them. Before they could act, an urgent transmission from the space station cut through the chaos. "Marcus, Willa," came the voice of a frantic scientist. "We have a situation up here. The hybridization process, it's causing unexpected complications." Marcus's brow furrowed as he processed the information. "We need to split up," he said to Willa. "You handle things here with Zara. I'll head to the station." Willa nodded, her eyes never leaving Zara's distressed form. "Be careful," she said, reaching out to squeeze Marcus's hand. In a blink, Marcus was gone, his enhanced abilities allowing him to create a localized wormhole for rapid transport. Willa turned her full attention to Zara, reaching out with her own powers to create a dampening field around the gravity-manipulating hybrid. "Zara," Willa called out, her voice calm but firm. "I need you to focus on my voice. We're going to work through this together." On the space station, Marcus materialized in the middle of chaos. Alarms blared as he took in the scene before him. Several hybrid individuals lay unconscious on the floor, while others struggled against their own bodies, their forms shifting and changing in unpredictable ways. "What happened?" Marcus demanded, rushing to the side of a convulsing volunteer. Dr. Elara, the lead geneticist, approached him, her face pale with worry. "The hybridization process activated dormant genes linked to precursor abilities, but their bodies, they're struggling to adapt to the rapid changes." Marcus's mind raced, considering their options. "We need to use the precursor medical equipment to suppress these abilities temporarily," he said, already moving towards the advanced technology they had discovered earlier. Back on Genesis Prime, Willa worked tirelessly to contain Zara's expanding gravity well. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she pushed her own abilities to their limits, creating a complex energy field to counteract the gravitational fluctuations. "Zara, listen to me," Willa said, her voice strained but steady. "Your body is adapting to new abilities. I know it's overwhelming, but you have the strength to control this." Zara's eyes, wide with fear and confusion, locked onto Willa's. Slowly, the swirling debris began to settle as Zara fought to regain control. On the station, Marcus moved from person to person, using his unique hybrid physiology to fine-tune the suppression process for each affected individual. As he worked, a familiar presence materialized beside him, the holographic form of the custodian AI. The precursors faced similar challenges in their early experiments with genetic modification, the AI intoned, its geometric form shifting and realigning. "I can provide insights that may aid your efforts." Marcus nodded gratefully, absorbing the information as he continued his work. With the custodian's guidance, he refined his approach, gradually bringing the situation under control. Hours passed as Marcus and Willa worked separately, but in tandem, their physiological bond allowing them to share sensory experiences across the vast distance. As the last of the affected hybrids stabilized, Marcus created another wormhole, returning to Genesis Prime. He found Willa and Zara in the newly constructed containment chamber, designed to help Zara learn to control her gravity manipulation without risking further damage to the surrounding area. "How is she?" Marcus asked, approaching the two women. Willa smiled tiredly. "Making progress. We've managed to stabilize the gravitational fluctuations, but it's going to take time for her to fully master her abilities." Before they could discuss further, Grand Admiral Thorne's voice came through their communication devices. "Marcus, Willa, we have a situation. The self-replicating machine swarm has increased its activity and is moving towards populated systems. We need immediate assistance in implementing defensive measures." Marcus and Willa shared a look of concern. "We need to divide our efforts," Marcus said. "I'll focus on accelerating the construction of Haven. We need that specialized world operational as soon as possible to contain and study the swarm." Willa nodded in agreement. "I'll work with the custodian to unlock more of the precursor's knowledge on advanced propulsion and energy weapons. We'll need every advantage we can get against this threat." As they prepared to tackle these new challenges, Marcus and Willa took a moment to center themselves. They stood side by side, their hands intertwined, feeling the pulse of Genesis Prime beneath their feet and the weight of their responsibility to the galaxy. "Ready?" Marcus asked, his voice soft but resolute. Willa squeezed his hand in response. "Always." With that, they separated, each moving to their respective tasks. Marcus headed to the planet's surface, connecting with the terraforming technology to expedite the construction of Haven. The planet's landscape began to shift and change under his guidance, defensive systems rising from the newly formed crust. Meanwhile, Willa immersed herself in the precursor database, working alongside the custodian AI to decipher and implement advanced technologies. Her mind raced as she began to design a fleet of ships capable of intercepting and redirecting the machine swarm. As they worked, Marcus and Willa discovered that their evolving bond allowed them to share more than just sensory experiences. They could now communicate complex ideas and strategies across vast distances, coordinating their efforts with unprecedented efficiency. This newfound ability proved crucial as they balanced the multiple crises facing Genesis Prime and the wider galaxy. While focusing on their primary tasks, they also guided the hybridization research team in developing targeted therapies for the volunteers, helping them adapt to their new abilities gradually. Days blurred into weeks as Marcus and Willa pushed themselves to their limits. The construction of Haven neared completion, its defenses primed and ready. The interceptor fleet, armed with precursor-derived weapons, stood prepared to engage the approaching swarm. As they made final preparations, Marcus detected an anomaly in Haven's core. Further investigation revealed a hidden precursor vault containing advanced defensive technologies specifically designed to combat the self-replicating machine swarm. "Willa," Marcus called out through their bond, his excitement palpable. "You need to see this. It could be the advantage we've been looking for." In the command center of Haven, Marcus and Willa stood surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching swarm and the defensive fleet moving to engage it. The newly discovered precursor technologies hummed with potential around them, ready to be deployed. As they prepared to face their greatest challenge yet, Marcus and Willa's hybrid physiologies resonated with the complex systems around them. They shared a moment of connection, drawing strength from each other and the diverse coalition of species now under their protection. The first wave of the machine swarm appeared on the long-range sensors, its vast numbers casting a shadow across the stars. Marcus and Willa stood ready, their hands clasped tightly together as they prepared to defend their new home and the future of the galaxy. As they braced for the imminent clash, an urgent alert flashed across the command center's holographic displays. "Warning, critical malfunction detected in Haven's core defense systems." The custodian AI's voice resonated through the chamber, its tone urgent and unwavering. Marcus's eyes widened as he processed the implications. Without hesitation, he placed his palm on the nearest interface panel, his hybrid physiology allowing him to connect directly with Haven's infrastructure. "I'm initiating emergency protocols," he announced, his voice taut with concentration. "Willa, we need a team from Genesis Prime. The core systems are destabilizing faster than I can counteract alone." Willa nodded, her mind already racing through potential solutions. With a mere thought, she opened a shimmering wormhole beside her. "I'm on it. I'll bring our best hybrid engineers." As Willa stepped through the portal, Marcus delved deeper into Haven's systems, his consciousness spreading through the planet's digital networks. He could feel the instability pulsing through the core, a discordant rhythm threatening to unravel their carefully laid defenses. On Genesis Prime, Willa emerged from the wormhole, her voice cutting through the bustling activity of the command center. "We have a situation on Haven. I need our top hybrid engineers, now." Within moments, a team of 5 engineers, their bodies humming with the potential of their enhanced abilities, assembled before her. Willa quickly briefed them on the situation as she opened another wormhole back to Haven. The group materialized in Haven's central engineering hub, the air thick with the scent of ozone and the hum of strained machinery. Holographic readouts flickered erratically, displaying the rapidly deteriorating status of the planet's defenses. The precursor tech is interacting with Haven's core in ways we didn't anticipate, Willa explained, her fingers flying over a control panel. The rapid terraforming has left the planet's core unstable. It's generating electromagnetic pulses that are disrupting our defensive grid. One of the engineers, a tall woman named Lyra, stepped forward. We need to recalibrate the entire system manually. It's the only way to account for these unexpected variables. Willa nodded grimly. Agreed, we'll split into teams. Lyra, take 2 engineers and head to the northern hemisphere. The rest of you, with me to the south. We'll need to use our abilities to interface directly with the precursor tech at each nexus point. As the teams dispersed, Willa established a telepathic link with Marcus. Through their shared consciousness, she could feel his strain as he worked to stabilize Haven's core from the command center. How long do we have? Willa asked, her thoughts tinged with urgency. Marcus's reply came with a flash of tactical data. The swarm will reach our orbit in less than 3 hours. We need those defenses online before then. Willa's team raced across Haven's rugged landscape, the planet's newly formed terrain still settling beneath their feet. They reached the first nexus point, a towering spire of gleaming precursor technology that pulsed with erratic energy. Without hesitation, Willa placed her hands on the structure, her hybrid physiology allowing her to sync with its complex systems. She felt the discord immediately, the clash between the ancient technology and the young planet's volatile core. Focus on stabilizing the power flow, she instructed her team. I'll work on realigning the defense protocols. As they worked, sweat beading on their brows, Willa received a sudden burst of excited thoughts from Marcus. Willa, we have unexpected help, his mental voice rang, with a mix of relief and apprehension. Zara's made a breakthrough with her abilities. She thinks she can help with the swarm. Before Willa could respond, a new presence joined their mental link. Zara's thoughts, brimming with newfound confidence, flooded their shared consciousness. I can create stable gravity wells now, Zara explained, her excitement palpable even across the vast distance. If you bring me to Haven, I might be able to trap parts of the swarm, keep them from reaching the surface. Willa paused, her hands still connected to the pulsing nexus point. She quickly conferred with Marcus, weighing the potential benefits against the risks of bringing Zara into the heart of the conflict. All right, Willa finally agreed. Marcus, bring her in. We'll need every advantage we can get. As Zara was transported to Haven, Willa refocused on her task. The defensive grid was slowly coming back online, each recalibrated nexus point strengthening their shield against the approaching threat. Suddenly, the sky above Haven lit up with a dazzling display of energy weapons. The first wave of the machine swarm had entered the planet's outer atmosphere, earlier than anticipated. Marcus, status report, Willa called out, both verbally and mentally. Defenses are at 60% capacity and climbing, Marcus replied, his thoughts a whirlwind of tactical data and split-second decisions. Zara's in position. She's creating gravity wells in the upper atmosphere. It's working, Willa. We're trapping significant portions of the swarm. A surge of hope rushed through Willa, but it was short-lived. A new alert blared through their mental link, accompanied by a flood of urgent data from Marcus. We have a problem. Marcus's thoughts rang with alarm. A large section of the swarm has broken off. They're bypassing Haven completely. They're heading straight for Genesis Prime. Willa's heart raced as she processed this new threat. Their home, the cradle of their new civilization, was now in imminent danger. I'm heading back, she decided, already preparing to open a wormhole. Marcus, can you handle things here? Go, Marcus urged. I've got Haven. Zara's performing better than we could have hoped. Save Genesis Prime, Willa. With a nod to her team, instructing them to continue the recalibration efforts, Willa stepped through the shimmering portal. She emerged in Genesis Prime's command center, immediately taking charge of the planet's defenses. Activate the planetary shield, she ordered, her voice ringing with authority. Deploy our hybrid squadrons. We need to buy time for the coalition fleet to arrive. As the massive energy barrier flickered to life around Genesis Prime, Willa linked her mind with the hybrid pilots launching into orbit. Through their shared connection, she coordinated their movements with unparalleled precision, guiding them to intercept the approaching swarm. The battle raged on two fronts. On Haven, Marcus directed the planet's defenses, working in tandem with Zara to trap and neutralize the relentless machine swarm. On Genesis Prime, Willa led the combined forces of hybrid pilots and incoming coalition ships against the second wave of the threat. Through it all, Marcus and Willa maintained their telepathic link, their shared consciousness allowing them to coordinate strategies across the vast expanse of space. As energy weapons flashed and gravity wells pulsed, the fate of both planets hung in the balance. The machine swarm pressed on, its numbers seemingly endless. For every unit destroyed or trapped, two more seemed to take its place. On Haven, Marcus watched as Zara strained to maintain her gravity wells, her face etched with persistence. On Genesis Prime, Willa pushed the hybrid pilots to their limits, their enhanced reflexes barely keeping pace with the swarm's adaptive tactics. As the battles intensified, Marcus and Willa knew that the next few hours would determine not just the fate of Haven in Genesis Prime, but potentially the future of the entire galaxy. With renewed focus, they threw themselves into the fight, their bonds stronger than ever as they faced this unprecedented threat. The fate of both planets hung in the balance as Marcus and Willa pushed their abilities to the limit. On Haven, Marcus's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, his mind seamlessly integrated with the planet's systems. He felt the core's instability like a discordant rhythm in his chest, but with each passing moment, his adjustments brought it closer to harmony. "Zara, status update," he called out, both verbally and through their mental link. The young hybrid's voice crackled through the comm system, strained but determined. "Gravity wells holding at 70% capacity. I've trapped a significant portion of the swarm in the upper atmosphere, but more keep coming." Marcus nodded, his eyes scanning the tactical displays. "Keep it up, Zara. We're making progress." As he worked, Marcus felt a surge of energy course through Haven's systems. The recalibrated nexus points pulsed in sync, their power flowing smoothly through the planet's infrastructure. Suddenly, the defensive grid snapped into full alignment, a shimmering barrier materializing around the planet. "Defense systems online and operating at maximum efficiency," the custodian AI announced, its voice resonating through the command center. Marcus allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction before refocusing on the battle. With Haven's defenses fully operational, he turned his attention to coordinating the counterattack. Meanwhile, on Genesis Prime, Willa's consciousness soared with her hybrid pilots, their shared mental link allowing for unprecedented tactical coordination. Through their eyes, she saw the vastness of space lit up by the flashes of energy weapons and the glowing trails of coalition ships. "Delta Squadron, form up on my left flank," she commanded, her thoughts guiding the pilots with precision. "Epsilon Squadron, execute maneuver Theta 3. Let's box them in." The hybrid pilots responded instantly, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to pull off complex formations with ease. Willa watched with pride as they outmaneuvered the machine swarm, their precursor-derived weapons tearing through the mechanical hordes. As the battle raged on, Grand Admiral Thorne's voice cut through the chaos. "Genesis Prime, this is the Coalition fleet. We're moving into position now. Hold the line." Willa's heart soared as she saw the massive Coalition ships emerge from hyperspace, their weapons already charging. With renewed vigor, she redoubled her efforts, coordinating the defense of her homeworld with unwavering focus. Back on Haven, Marcus felt a shift in the tide of battle. The combined power of the planet's defenses and Zara's gravity wells was taking its toll on the swarm. He watched as entire sections of the mechanical army were trapped and systematically destroyed by Haven's automated defense systems. "Willa," he called out through their mental link, "how are things holding up on Genesis Prime?" Her response came instantly, accompanied by a flood of tactical data. "We're pushing them back, Marcus. The Coalition fleet arrived just in time. I think we might actually win this." As if in response to their growing optimism, alarms blared across both command centers. Marcus and Willa's eyes widened as they processed the incoming data. The swarm, it's changing tactics, Marcus said, his voice tight with concern. They're converging on specific points in our defenses, trying to overload them with sheer numbers. Willa's response was immediate. We need to adapt. Marcus, can you access the precursor beacons we discovered? It's time to put them to use. Without hesitation, Marcus reached out with his hybrid abilities, interfacing with the ancient precursor technology hidden throughout the galaxy. As he connected with the network of beacons, he felt an immense surge of power flow through him. Initiating activation sequence, he announced, his voice resonating with the energy of countless stars. Willa, I need you to help me modulate the field. We can't risk destabilizing entire systems. As one, Marcus and Willa focused their combined will on the precursor network. Across the galaxy, long-dormant beacons flared to life, creating a web of energy that spread between the stars. The effect on the machine swarm was immediate and dramatic. As the energy field washed over them, their ability to self-replicate faltered. The endless waves of reinforcements slowed to a trickle, then stopped entirely. It's working! Zara's excited voice rang out over the comms. The swarm! They're not adapting anymore. We've got them. With the swarm's greatest advantage neutralized, the tide of battle shifted decisively in favor of the defenders. On Haven, Marcus directed the planet's weapons to systematically eliminate the trap machines. On Genesis Prime, Willa led the combined forces of hybrid pilots and coalition ships in a final push to clear their space. As the last of the swarm was neutralized, a collective cheer rose from both planets. Marcus and Willa shared a moment of profound relief and pride through their mental link, their thoughts intertwining in a wordless celebration of their hard-fought victory. But even as the immediate threat subsided, both knew that their work was nowhere near the end. The capture of intact swarm units presented new opportunities and challenges. Marcus turned his attention to the research teams, already clamoring for access to the recovered technology. We need to move quickly, he told Willa through their link. If we can integrate this tech with our precursor systems, we might be able to turn this invasion into a stepping stone for galactic progress. Willa's agreement came with a burst of excited ideas. Agreed. I'm already seeing potential applications for environmental restoration and advanced manufacturing. But first, we need to secure our position and reach out to our allies. This victory will change everything, Marcus. As they began to coordinate their next steps, a priority message flashed across their interfaces. Grand Admiral Thorne's hologram appeared before them, his expression a mix of relief and anticipation. Marcus, Willa, he began, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. You've done the impossible, but our victory here has implications far beyond these two planets. Representatives from across the galaxy are already en route to Genesis Prime. They're calling for a new interstellar governing body with you two at its center. Marcus and Willa exchanged a glance, the magnitude of the responsibility settling over them. As they prepared to address the Admiral, another alert caught their attention. The custodian AI's voice rang out, carrying an unusual note of urgency. Hybrid Primes, it announced, using their formal title. A situation has developed that requires your immediate attention. An unidentified vessel has entered the system, broadcasting on frequencies not used since the age of the precursors. They're requesting to speak with the new guardians of Genesis Prime. Marcus and Willa stood at the threshold of a new chapter in galactic history, the echoes of their recent victory still resonating around them. As they turned to face this new development, they knew that the challenges ahead would test not only their abilities, but also the very foundations of the interstellar community they had fought so hard to protect. Protect. As Marcus and Willa turned to address this new development, an urgent message flashed across their neural interfaces, demanding immediate attention. Priority transmission from Genesis Prime, the custodian AI announced. Hybrid operative Zara reports a critical situation developing on the southern continent. Marcus and Willa exchanged a concerned glance before accessing the message. Zara's holographic form materialized before them, her expression taut with urgency. Primes, we have a crisis, Zara began without preamble. A group of rogue hybrids led by an individual named Vex has seized control of a precursor facility in the southern sector. They've taken hostages and are demanding an acceleration of the hybrid program. Willa's brow furrowed as she processed the information. What are their specific demands? Vex claims the current pace of hybridization is too slow, Zara replied. He wants to expand the program dramatically, create a new species to rule the galaxy. They're using their enhanced abilities to maintain a powerful energy shield around the complex. Marcus's fingers danced across a holographic interface, pulling up schematics of the facility. How many hostages? At least 24 non-hybrid scientists and technicians, Zara reported. We need to act fast. Marcus and Willa shared a silent moment of communication through their neural link. The gravity of the situation was clear. This internal conflict could jeopardize everything they'd built. We'll need to postpone the convergence ritual, Willa said aloud, her tone resolute. This takes precedence. Marcus nodded in agreement. Zara, maintain surveillance on the facility. We're on our way. He turned to the hologram of Grand Admiral Thorne. Admiral, we need to inform the ethereal delegation of the delay. Request their assistance if possible. As Thorne's image faded, replaced by the shimmering form of Zephyra, the ethereal ambassador, Marcus quickly outlined the situation. To their relief, Zephyra not only understood the necessity of postponing the ritual, but also offered to accompany them to Genesis Prime. This presents an opportunity to observe how you handle internal conflicts, Zephyra stated, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with interest. The ethereals will assist in any way we can. Within hours, Marcus, Willa, and Zephyra were aboard a high-speed shuttle, breaking through Genesis Prime's atmosphere. As they descended towards the southern continent, the captured precursor facility came into view, a gleaming spire of alien architecture surrounded by a shimmering energy barrier. In the mobile command center hastily established outside the facility's perimeter, Marcus and Willa convened with Grand Admiral Thorne and Zara to assess the situation. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing real-time feeds from surveillance drones circling the complex. The energy shield is impenetrable to our current weaponry, Thorne reported, his weathered face creased with concern. A direct assault would likely result in significant casualties, both our forces and the hostages. Willa's eyes narrowed as she studied the facility's layout. We need a surgical approach, a small team that can infiltrate without detection. Marcus nodded, his mind already racing through possibilities. Zara, your gravity manipulation could be key. If we can create a temporary distortion in the shield, we could slip a team through undetected, Zara finished, her eyes lighting up with understanding. As the plan took shape, Willa interfaced with the custodian AI, working to develop a targeted electromagnetic pulse capable of temporarily suppressing hybrid abilities without causing permanent harm. Meanwhile, Marcus delved deep into Genesis Prime's systems, creating an intricate holographic map of the precursor facility's interior. We'll need to move under cover of darkness, Willa said, studying the detailed schematics. Zara, assemble a team of our most trusted hybrid operatives. Choose those with abilities that complement each other. As night fell, the operation began. Zara led her hand-picked team to the edge of the energy shield, her face a mask of concentration as she reached out with her powers. The air shimmered and warped, creating a barely visible distortion in the barrier. Now, she whispered, and one by one, the infiltration team slipped through the gap. From the mobile command center, Marcus and Willa monitored the team's progress through their neural links. Holographic displays showed the operatives' positions as glowing dots moving through the facility's corridors. 3 hostiles approaching from the east, Marcus communicated silently to the team. Wait for them to pass before proceeding. Zephyr observed the operation with rapt attention, her ethereal form hovering near the command consoles. Your coordination is impressive, she remarked. The bond between you allows for instantaneous decision-making. Willa nodded, her focus never wavering from the displays. It's more than just neural links. Our shared experiences, our trust in each other, it all contributes to our efficiency. As Zara's team neared the central chamber, where Vex and the majority of the hostages were located, alarms suddenly blared through the command center. Energy spikes detected, Marcus called out, his fingers flying across interfaces. They've rigged the surrounding corridors with traps, fields that react violently to hybrid abilities. Willa's mind raced, searching for a solution. Can we disable them remotely? Marcus shook his head, frustration evident in his voice. Not without risking a system-wide shutdown. Wait. His eyes widened as an idea struck. If I can access the facility's power grid through the precursor systems. Without hesitation, Marcus closed his eyes, reaching out with his hybrid abilities to interface directly with the ancient technology. The command center's lights flickered as he channeled an enormous amount of energy. Zara? Willa communicated through their link. Prepare for temporary darkness. Use it to your advantage. Moments later, the entire facility plunged into blackness. In the sudden darkness, Zara and her team moved with preternatural speed, their enhanced senses allowing them to navigate effortlessly. Central chamber breached, Zara's thoughts rang out, engaging Vex in his inner circle. Marcus and Willa watched the confrontation unfold through the team's shared neural feed. In a flurry of motion, Zara's operatives subdued the rogue hybrids, their superior training and coordination overcoming Vex's group. Now, Willa, Marcus called out. Willa activated the electromagnetic pulse, sending a carefully calibrated wave of energy through the facility. The rogue hybrids' abilities flickered and died, leaving them powerless. Hostages secured, Zara reported, relief evident in her mental voice. Facility under our control. As the lights came back online, Marcus and Willa shared a moment of silent celebration. The crisis had been averted with minimal casualties, demonstrating the effectiveness of their leadership and the strength of their bond. Impressive, Zephyra murmured, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with approval. You've handled this internal threat with wisdom and restraint. The ethereals will look favorably upon this when we proceed with the convergence ritual. Marcus and Willa nodded gratefully, but their attention was already turning to the aftermath of the conflict. As they prepared to enter the now secured facility, both knew that the challenges ahead, from debriefing Vex to addressing the concerns that led to this uprising, would require all of their combined skills and understanding. The convergence ritual still loomed on the horizon, its potential to reshape their relationship and the future of the Galactic Alliance weighing heavily on their minds. But as they stepped towards the facility's entrance, Marcus and Willa drew strength from their unbreakable bond, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead. Ahead, the crisis on Genesis Prime had been averted, but it was clear that their journey was just the beginning. As Marcus and Willa prepared to depart for the precursor space station, they felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness coursing through their hybrid physiology. The sleek shuttle cut through the atmosphere, leaving the lush green world of Genesis Prime behind. As they ascended into the starry expanse, Marcus turned to Willa, their hands intertwined. "Ready for this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Willa nodded, her eyes reflecting the commitment they both felt. "Together," she replied simply. The journey to the precursor station passed in a blur of stars and swirling nebulae. As they approached, the massive structure came into view, its ancient architecture now pulsing with new life. The fusion of precursor technology and ethereal energy had transformed the station into something entirely new, a shimmering beacon in the darkness of space. As their shuttle docked, Marcus and Willa were greeted by a sight that took their breath away. Zephyra stood at the head of a group of ethereal elders, their translucent forms radiating an otherworldly glow. The corridors of the station seemed to shimmer and shift as they walked, responding to the mere presence of the ethereals. Welcome, hybrid primes." Zephyra's multifaceted eyes gleamed with approval. "The convergence chamber awaits." As they followed the ethereals through the winding corridors, Marcus and Willa marveled at the seamless blend of technologies. Precursor consoles pulsed with ethereal energy, while holographic displays shimmered with an otherworldly quality. Finally, they arrived at the heart of the station. The convergence chamber opened before them, a vast spherical room that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Its walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, creating a mesmerizing display of light and color. At the center of the chamber floated a swirling vortex of energy, a fusion of precursor and ethereal technologies so advanced it bordered on the mystical. Marcus and Willa approached, their hybrid senses tingling with the raw power emanating from the vortex. Sapphira's voice echoed through the chamber. The convergence will test not only your individual abilities, but the strength of your bond. Are you prepared? Marcus and Willa exchanged a look, years of shared experiences and trust passing between them in an instant. Without a word, they stepped forward, hand in hand, into the swirling vortex. The world around them exploded into a kaleidoscope of sensation. They found themselves hurtling through a series of rapidly shifting environments, each presenting a unique challenge that demanded perfect synchronization. In one moment, they stood amidst the towering spires of a crumbling precursor city. The ground shook beneath their feet as buildings swayed dangerously. Without hesitation, Marcus reached out with his hybrid abilities, stabilizing a collapsing structure. Willa, in perfect harmony, used her powers to create energy pathways, guiding holographic civilians to safety. The scene shifted, and suddenly, they were at the helm of a massive starship. A vast asteroid field loomed before them, while enemy vessels closed in from behind. Marcus's hands flew over the controls, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to navigate the treacherous field with impossible precision. Willa, meanwhile, managed the ship's defenses, her mind interfacing directly with the weapon systems to repel the attacking forces. As the trials progressed, Marcus and Willa's movements became increasingly fluid and coordinated. Their hybrid physiologies resonated with the energies of the convergence, allowing them to anticipate each other's actions with uncanny accuracy. They moved as one, their minds and bodies in perfect harmony. The final test materialized around them, and they found themselves standing in what appeared to be the core of Genesis Prime. Alarms blared as holographic displays showed a massive energy surge threatening to destabilize the entire planet. Without a word, Marcus and Willa sprang into action. Drawing upon the full extent of their hybrid abilities, they began to weave a complex network of energy fields. Marcus focused on redirecting the surge, his hands moving in intricate patterns as he guided the volatile energy away from critical systems. Willa, in turn, created a series of buffer zones, dissipating the excess power and preventing it from causing further damage. As they worked, their minds melded on a level they had never before experienced. Thoughts, emotions, and instincts flowed freely between them, allowing them to react and adapt with impossible speed. The simulated crisis grew in intensity, pushing them to their limits, but their bond held strong. With a final coordinated effort, Marcus and Willa contained the energy surge. The holographic displays flickered and faded, leaving them standing once again in the center of the convergence chamber. The vortex of energy surrounding them began to coalesce, forming a shimmering cocoon that enveloped them both. Inside this cocoon of pure energy, Marcus and Willa experienced a moment of connection so profound it defied description. Their minds merged completely, sharing every memory, thought, and emotion with perfect clarity. In this state of ultimate intimacy, they realized that their bond transcended the physical, representing a new evolutionary step for both humans and Romulans. As the cocoon slowly dissolved, Marcus and Willa emerged transformed. Their bodies glowed with a soft, otherworldly light, and they could sense the intricate web of energy connecting all living things around them. The ethereal elders and the custodian AI's voice rang out in unison, announcing their successful completion of the convergence. Zephyra stepped forward, her form seeming to shimmer with approval. In her hands, she held two crystalline devices, each pulsing with an inner light that seemed to call out to Marcus and Willa. "You have proven yourselves worthy," Zephyra intoned, her voice resonating with power. These artifacts contain the sum total of ethereal knowledge and the keys to unlocking the full potential of precursor technology. With them, you shall guide the Galactic Alliance into a new era of peace and prosperity. As Marcus and Willa reached out to accept the artifacts, the space station around them began to transform. The fusion of ethereal and precursor technologies accelerated, spreading throughout the structure like a living thing. New wings and modules sprouted from the station, expanding it into a vast complex that would serve as the central hub for the Galactic Alliance. Standing amidst this miraculous transformation, Marcus and Willa looked at each other. their eyes shining with the light of new possibilities. They had faced countless challenges together, from interstellar wars to personal trials, but this moment marked the beginning of their greatest adventure yet. As the station continued to grow and evolve around them, Marcus and Willa knew that their journey was nowhere near the end. The artifacts in their hands held the potential to reshape the galaxy, and with their newfound abilities, they were uniquely positioned to guide this transformation. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their bond stronger than ever.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.